If I hook my cart to a dead horse, it doesn't matter what I put in there. You know, I can turbocharge it, whatever, but this horse is holding me back the whole time.
Is heading harder? Is heeling harder?
I think there's a right answer here, and there's a true answer. When you get married, you realize you can be right or you can be happy. And savants are the best chess players in the world. They literally have a sixth sense about chess. So one character I was listening to, you know, he was like a 900, and he was getting ready to go to a chess tournament, and he happened to see a random homeless guy on the street, and he's got a chessboard sitting in front of him, and he says, "Hey, could I play chess against you?" And he said, "Yeah, one time." He checkmates him in less than 3 minutes. And this guy is a 1 in 10,000 chess player already before he plays this guy. So he says one more time. The guy says, "No, I'm leaving." So he ends up paying him to play him one more time, and he checkmates him in 2 minutes. The second time, folds his board up, all of his pieces, and is leaving. It's like a story out of, you know, like the point I'm getting to. The healing gets to the point where you've darn near seen everything. Like we've darn near. I mean, I've been rodeoing for 27% of my life. The one that I missed the other day, I've seen that one before, and I've caught him a lot.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Let's Freakin' Rodeo podcast, presented to you by Bootbarn.
Today on the podcast, we have Buddy Hawkins, our first healer we're going to get on the podcast. Intelligent guy, smart guy, amazing roper. Let's just say on this podcast, it's going to make you faint, but in a good way.
You're going to think.
At the very end of the podcast, he compares roping to chess.
And did it in a way that made perfect sense.
Did it in a way that made perfect sense. Watch us on the Cowboy Channel YouTube, Cowboy Channel TV. You can watch us on Spotify, Apple, all the normal places. But we are now on the Cowboy Channel YouTube if that's the place you watch. Let's freakinrodeo.com for some merch. Thank you guys for supporting so much. Thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you in the podcast.
But you're our first strictly team roper, and we figured you were probably one of the smartest team ropers, no offense to any of them. So we were like, man, we're going to have some good questions that we feel like you can break down and dissect for our rodeo fans. So
yeah, it's a highly competitive group when it comes to intelligence. So I'll take that as a real, real compliment. On the flip side, though, no, it's an honor. I've been a fan of you guys. You know, there's a few podcasts that I've kind of backed off on because I doubt their full integrity when it comes to edits and whatever, you know. But I mean, I know this is a game where, you know, we've got to edit, but it's like, man, you take clips and bits out, you got to know the people on the other side of the camera have the passion to promote the sport. You know, There's zero question marks with you guys. You guys love rodeo as much as I do. So it's easy to sit down and do something like this.
Well,
and
thanks,
honor.
It means a lot. We've never really even had more than just a hi, hello, how you doing, good heel shot type of conversation. So I was looking forward to it. You said you love rodeo. We obviously do too. I mean, I read a quote. All I've ever wanted to do is make a living team roping. I'd run the chute or ride horses if I couldn't make a living with my rope team roping.
Sure. You know, that's really a spinoff. I'd like to be the original on every quote today, but I mean, I think we're too far into humanity and documented history to think that any of our quotes are actually original, or we're the first one to have any thought. You know, when we consider a minimum of 6,000 years of humanity, everything's already been thought about once, surely. But Leo the Lion actually lived up to his word. He had a quote from probably the 80s. You know, he's passed away now, but his quote was, you know, he loved team roping, and he said, if I couldn't heel, I would head. If I couldn't head, I'd run the chutes. And I literally have a picture of him running the chutes for me and my good buddy Travis Barden Prescott the year before he passed away. But yeah, back to that. Team roping was really a one thing. Like, I tried a few things growing up and nothing stuck. You know, I'm a very passionate person. I know you know, you've talked to some other guys, Hurricane, about being competitive and whatever. And, you know, I thought I was the most competitive person in the world. I got around quite a few women in rodeo, and I kind of have my doubts, you know? Am I wrong? But
I don't think you're wrong. But no comment.
Most competitive male. That's what I'm going to say. I'm the most competitive. No, honestly, I respect the women out here. They're so far ahead of us in everything. You know, it's like hawk injections was nothing for team ropers. I mean, it's like Speed Williams was doing them in 2008. Nobody else is doing these things. Every barrel racer is doing them freaking early 2000s.
Right.
So it's like we're, you know, if you want to see what the great thing for our horses, and sure, they may be spinning crystals and some stuff that don't make any logical sense to it either. But at the end of the day, we better be watching because some of the shit works, and as far as the competitive event, if there's any event that we can just dive into and be competitive, it ain't barrel racing. And it don't matter if you weigh 70 pounds and you have $10 million. This is a very, very hard business and they're amazing. And so, that being the case, for me personally, the competitiveness on that side, whether it be honest and with integrity or dirty, the ladies, the girls, and they impressed me, up one side, down the other. So that being the case, I think it's a pretty neat deal. But back to that, excited to be here, and the competition. I guess with the team ropers taking up about, I think we're still 30+% of the membership. We almost stay within our group, like we don't catch that many rides, it's like the steer wrestlers. We they catch rides with one another. And I don't think, I think it's probably false to say that they're a tighter knit group, but it's just, the team ropers can kind of stay within themselves. The tie down ropers stay within themselves. But I'm a big fan of yours as well.
Oh, thanks, man. That's been a lot of fun to get. I mean, we're talking about from Buddy Hawkins to Leon Coffey to Cody Ole to Stetson Wright, Haley Kinsel, Charmaine James. The different type of people that we've gotten the chance to talk to is unreal. Personalities, mindsets, back story line from their whole life growing up.
What is harder? Is heading harder? Is healing harder? I know it's a very vague question, but like, what is the common understanding amongst professionals about the harder job?
Sure. Well, I think there's a right answer here, and there's a true answer, which sounds kind of funny. You guys are both single, right? So when you get married, you realize you can be right or you can be happy, and so you figure out. No, I'm joking, but within team roping, what you find is we're absolutely the healers are the wives of the sport. If we want to break it down, the healers are actually the helpmate to this. And so bring it back to a biblical context, and God didn't create the woman to replace the man to do what the man was already doing, do a better job. I'm not saying women can't do things better, but the woman was created to do what the man couldn't do and to essentially follow well and to supplement. And it doesn't devalue that whatsoever. One of my greatest friends of all time, and he's done unbelievable things for me only because he's a great human being. But Brandon Webb with 3S Services, we're best friends, brothers. We die for each other, do anything for each other. Point I'm getting to is he's the greatest leader I've ever been around. Been super successful in business, but what Webb showed me there was that the reason he's a great leader is he has a great expectation for his followers, and he knows what they need. So if Webb said, "What are we doing today, buddy?" I could say, "Here's what I think you need to work on. We got to work on this with your score and this with your swing. We need to run this set of cattle up, and you need to saddle these 6 horses." And he was a freaking soldier. It was yes, sir. And he's, I don't know if he's a millionaire, billionaire. I could care less. He's my friend. But at this point, he's bringing me in to get all the knowledge that I have, and it's all on the table for him. So he works it all out with marching orders. I mean, it's until every horse is tired, steer's tired, our staff's tired. And then we put everything up, and the next day he's like, "We need to do the same thing." And I'm like, "Yep, I think we're getting closer." So does the same thing, but every day he followed orders really well. And the point I was getting to on that is I think to be great at anything, it actually initiates at the bottom, and it's a following program. And so the best followers in the sport of team roping are your best healers, and they can follow multiple different partners. You'll notice that every partner excels in front of them. They achieve their greatest accomplishments with that guy. On the flip side, it's absolutely required that somebody's leading. And so within that, my opinion is the healing. And I just decided before I did the podcast today, I'm going to come with the truth, whether people like it or not. But that being the case, it's absolutely harder to heal because we are susceptible. My brother-in-law, maybe my second best friend, I'm not going to pick best friends, but my brother-in-law and I had a really great run of 3 or 4 years there. And I was building a great team of horses when he cut me and decided he wanted to do something else. And I'm kind of back, I go back to square one, and there's zero offense. There's no like he and I, the conversations that we need to have already been had. But my point I was getting to is it may have set me back 3 or 4 years that he was ready to do something else. But as a leader of his family, leader of his teams, he's got to make the decisions that are absolutely best for his crew. And so for me, I was proud of him. I mean, I can share, something I maybe never told anyone, but I cried more after our partnership than I did after my divorce.
Well,
and it just,
how could you not?
Yeah. Well, and I loved him and I still love him, and he's in this parking lot here and we're best friends. There's but the point I'm getting to is, I didn't think it was the best thing for him. I didn't think it was the best thing for me. But what I did realize was, for him personally, that was a big move, and it was time for him. He had two partners in his life. He had his brother, and that was a very hard separation for them guys to go separate ways. And then he had the chance with me. I had the chance with him, however you want to look at it. I was a little more accomplished than he was when we started roping. And he was better than me in our partnership. And I was working very hard to try to keep up with what we needed to do. And then there's just a point where, he lost his peace, or maybe he saw the opportunity of doing something else, fulfilling something, on his bucket list. No issues on my part, but point I'm getting to, I know I'm chasing this a long ways, but I think what makes the healing difficult is, as a header, you can basically be saying every day, what can make me better? And as long as you get better, there's going to be the best healer at the end of the rainbow. He is sitting there waiting. I'm not saying they're all looking over the fence, but if it becomes obvious that he has a better opportunity to feed his kids and he doesn't take it, is he really trying to win? Secondarily, as a healer, I am following my header. So if I hook my cart to a dead horse, it doesn't matter what I put in there. I can turbocharge it, whatever, but this horse is holding me back the whole time.
I can turbocharge, but that horse don't have nothing to
I have
do,
about 27 things to say from that. First off, you've roped with 4 different headers at 7 different NFRs, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
So four headers for 7 NFRs. How difficult is that to go from header to header? And have you seen a difference in guys' run? So I know they're best in the world.
Like
they're going to
styles.
spin styles. The best in the world is going to spin, I think, in my opinion, similar steers a lot of times for a healer. That's the one thing about you guys. You don't get the same look. You're dealing with another animal and another guy riding another animal. It just, to me, healing is so crazy because you have no idea what's about to happen. None of the events in rodeo do, but especially healing. Is there some headers that have given you that same look every time?
Sure. Well, great question. First part of the question, yes, it is difficult to go from one guy to the next. I think it's very, I think it very much comes back to the healer. So myself personally, what I'll share is, I don't look at a guy who turns a steer a certain way and try to sign up with that guy and be like, hey, this guy does this. There's no limit to handles. If we were to rack 10 steers that are out of heifers that are full sisters and the same bull, so these are all full siblings genetically, and then we ran them 10 times, out of those 100 runs that we would run, we might literally have 10 out of 100 that are going to be in the same tracks, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I leave has a lot to do with what's going on out there. When the header leaves, the lines that we pick leave in the box. The tie-down ropers are so far ahead of a lot of the team ropers because if you have one that goes to the left, if you can beat him to the left, you can straighten him back out.
Mm-hmm.
If he goes to the right, you can go to the flag and you got a chance that you're going to be lined up, with the calf. I know very little about tie-down roping, but I know a lot about hazing. And I know that if you pick the left track in the pasture, your cow's going to go to the right. And if you pick the right track, your cow's going to the left. So that being the case, within the team roping, I personally don't look at how they handle steers. What I do look at, and one kind of underlying factor that very few people would know about me, and probably only a few more would actually think about, I think about how the guys heal. And it sounds kind of funny, but at the end of the day, if they don't understand healing, they don't understand what size of loop, they use the wrong size of loop when they heal. They don't understand how to follow the cow themselves. And so that's actually a factor. And honestly, if you go back through my partners throughout the years, I've kind of gotten better and better healers over time, to be my header. And the main thing is the best healers, what's very similar about us with that is, we're trying to get as much rope down there as we can. Mm-hmm. Now, sure, there are exceptions, small things. But the best example I can give is the smallest building in the world, the fastest times in the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. And not that it's necessarily the smallest arena, but what is a fact about it is there are fewer strides for the steers before they get to the fence. So if we're going to try to make a normal run, we actually have fewer opportunities to put our rope in there. We all use our biggest and our stiffest ropes, and we throw the biggest loops we can because we want to get the most catches throughout the week. We don't tighten everything down to try to be free. So that being the case, it's very important to me that a header understands that they need to open the steer up. So in other words, when the steer naturally decelerates through the turn, as he comes off that turn, we need to apply torque to the front end. And almost if you think about a chain being coiled up, like we got to straighten the chain as we go here. If you happen to come through the turn at a fairly rapid pace, and then you start to hit the brakes, well, it's similar to towing a vehicle with a chain, right? You slow down, chain gets loose, chain gets tight, chain gets loose, chain gets tight, right? So as we come through here, we have to lengthen this chain, almost stretch the chain. So it's important that they do that, but the turn itself is the number one thing that guys are thinking about. So like how much the steer hits or how much the steer rolls, or where that head horse's position is, in a similar way. I don't have great hand-eye coordination outside of heeling and team roping in general, but I do understand almost everything there is to do with the table game of pool. Like I have a very good understanding where you hit the ball, how the ball spins, bank shots, and all that. Heeling is very much about bank shots, right? So if you bring the head of the steer back very hard, the hips go down very hard. Everybody's roping fast lane, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a great example. We got a lot of other dummies now. Stretch rope dummies makes us super good. I'm plugging here, but that being the case, the more we torque on the head, the more the hips are going to swing. The less we torque on the head, the more the steer is going to roll.
Uh-huh.
So within that is one of the factors people consider, and that is I'm totally oblivious to that. I care none. I do think that the guy has to have good horses. Obviously, that's the only way. But to answer the second part of your question, and I know I'm expanding a lot, but this will pay us off later. As we progress, like as we pick a guy and we're actually going to sign up, and this is how he does it. I change everything. There's not anything, aside from my wife and kids, everything else is on the table. I'll change horses. I'll change ropes. Probably going to stick with my sponsors, but every company's going to make multiple different varieties of ropes, right? So I'll change partners, ropes, rope size, the way I read the turn, the way I leave the angle, I'm going to leave the box. I'll get a different rig. We take my rig to every rodeo if we need to. But the type of guy that you're going to sign up with, he's going to be thinking the same way almost every time, So
Really?
It's just very rare that just an extremely selfish guy ends up with this super giving, caring, loving partner that's just like, I'll do anything for you. And he's like, screw you, man. I'm going to do it my way. This doesn't hardly happen, right? A couple of guys that are maybe a little bit do it themselves, keep to themselves, stoic type, maybe they rope together and then they're able to kind of do their own thing and see you at the next rodeo in 3 weeks. I'll go practice, do my deal. On the flip side, if you're pretty cool, easy to get along with, you like intimacy, like you like communication with your partner, probably going to end up with another guy like that. And so sometimes you'll see that kind of, black sheep, white sheep, whatever partnership, usually short term. It's usually not like a dynasty type deal, but typically, like attracts like.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break from the podcast to tell you about our presenting sponsor, Bootbarn.
Hey, Cole, you headed to Pinoca in a couple weeks. Where are you going to go first?
Before I cross that border, we got to stop at Bootbarn, baby.
Bootbarn sponsors over 600 rodeos across the country. If you're a Let's Freakin' Rodeo fan and you're listening to this podcast, you probably should be a Bootbarn fan. I'm just telling you. They got 450 locations across the country from coast to coast.
They are supporting this podcast. They're supporting the rodeo industry. We support those people who support us, and that's Bootbarn.
I'm just telling you, you need some boots, some jeans, maybe a belt, shades, hat, cap, shirt, long sleeve, short sleeve. I don't care what kind of style you are. Cole, me, or anything in between. Go to Bootbarn or visit bootbarn.com online and get what you need. They got you covered from head to toe.
Thanks, Bootbarn, for sponsoring this podcast. As always, let's get back to it. There are so many things.
And so many things to say about that.
Your first question I had off of that, did you say in there, correct me if I'm wrong, that usually the best headers were once good healers? Did you say that?
Not specifically, but everybody does both, right? Like there's not going to be one guy at the Nampa rodeo that doesn't have another, like he has dabbled in the other side of the arena. He's been out there heading all day long, and then they run out of healers. So he's like, oh, I'll jump in and heal some of my head horse. Everybody does a little bit of both. At the top of the game right now, like if we want to pick, let's just pick 5 guys that are undisputed, Driggers. Well, he is 1 notch below the highest healer in the world, right? So you go 0 to 10 in the healing. Well, Driggers is a 9 or a 9+ healer, but he heads all the time at the rodeos. Clay Smith, he's a 8+ or a 9 healer, right? You want to flip to the other side. Let's say
Wade.
Sure. Yeah. Or Wesley Thorpe. Wesley is absolutely a candidate to make the national finals in the heading, but he's obviously undisputed in the healing. Jade Corkill quit healing at one point to be a header, was in the top 15 when he went back to healing, right? So the best guys have a bit of experience on the other side. I'm actually one of the lower numbered headers among the healers, but I'm still 7 on a scale of 1 to 9. So the point I was getting to more is there are some guys who their number within the USGRC would actually expose, like their number as one side or the other would actually make you think that they have a better understanding of the other side, but actually they don't. Maybe they're a 9 header, but they're a 6+ healer. Well, they actually have less understanding of what we're trying to do back there.
Wow.
And so that factor, I just got done spending a year with JC Aquo, one of my best friends in the world, awesome partner, maybe the best partner I've ever had. Generation gap a little bit. There was no drama within that, but it was just like, as we go out there in rodeo, it's like, man, the 15 years between us, I'm old enough to be his dad, basically. And he was super freaking cool. Took care of me all year like I was an old man. I took care of him like he's a little kid. But what I'm getting to, though, when you see him heal, he looks like a 10 healer, right? Now we did good at some rodeos, bad at some rodeos. We struggle with courses, whatever. But at the end of like when I see this kid heal, it just sticks in my mind. And I'm like, this guy, now he may only heal 6 or 7 out of 10, like a 10, and he may dust a few. But at the end of the deal, though, like he has a great understanding of what I'm trying to do back there. He's great at learning, at like reading the turn from the opposite side. So I know that if he's trying to turn steers, he could heal. I know that I'm going to be able to do the deal. On the flip side, what I run into occasionally is there'll be somebody who doesn't understand how we need to open those steers, how we need to keep that chain tight coming through the turn. That's the guy that I'm going to have a little bit more trouble with. For me personally, now that being the case, I think there's a lot of guys, timing is really the one factor in healing that I'll be on the street and somebody will say, are you a bull rider? And I'll be like, no, a team roper. They're like, you rope the front or you rope the back? And I'm like, I rope the back. And they're like, oh, that timing. Everybody picks up on that being the difficult thing of team roping. They're like, I think I could figure out how to drape it on the front end of the steer, but the timing being the factor. Well, that timing for me personally, I time throughout the whole run. And so, like I said, my hand-eye coordination is I'm probably in the, you can play games on Snapchat and you fit in the 100 percentile. And literally everybody in the world can do what you do. Well, my timing is probably in the 50 percentile. Like half of the people that picked up a rope could get the timing, but I've studied the run enough that I can time the run as much. Some guys their hand-eye is off the charts. I've heard stories of a lot of different veterans and whatever, and their hand-eye is phenomenal. Those guys probably don't need as much of that as I do. So that's more of a personal factor that I'm like Jeff Flinick. I'm roping with Jeff right now. Another one of my best friends. Seem to be a common denominator. I have a hard time wanting to see somebody that I don't like do good.
Right, exactly. Right.
No, I like all the guys, but I love rope with my best friend. And so, but Jeff, he's an elite healer. Like he doesn't heal a ton, but when he does heal, he has a great idea of what he needs to be doing back there. He looks professional, even if he's not necessarily roping like a pro. And he has a great understanding of what I'm trying to do. And so I think, part of the reason he wants to sign up with me is that I use a big loop and I'm trying to put it in a big stride of the steer. And that's, one of the greatest quotes. I'll go ahead and give him credit for it. But Nick Sartain said, you run more cattle through a bigger gate. And I think that's about what healing is. If you think about the best guys, we want to go back to Al Bach. We want to throw, Clay O'Brien Cooper in there, whoever, big loop, big money. And that's a factor that is pretty synonymous among elite healers,
So if you're roping with a guy, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want, but if you're roping with somebody and Are you watching other headers? Are you only starting your run with your header? What are you working on? What are you thinking about? And does that differ if you're winning or losing? Well, what's your mental game like? Obviously, it's great to have as much success as you've had, but how does it work for you?
Sure, great question, and I do want to answer it. I watch everybody. I'm the biggest fan of team roping, and it honestly pains me that my viewership is down as I compete more, if that's a good way to say it. The BFI, I get to see 50 out of the 500 runs.
Mm-hmm.
I would be happy to sit there for 500,
Really?
What do they say on the airplane, raw dog, where have you seen that deal?
Yeah.
They leave their eyes open. They just stare at a button on the seat, the whole flight, right? No drinking, no whatever. Well, I could raw dog the BFI, right? I could just sit there and I could watch every steer and honestly, I used to know more what the steers were doing when I was a fan, like from the videos. I didn't ever get to go watch a full BFI in Reno, but that being the case, I watch what everybody's doing. I'm a fan of everybody. I'm monogamous, within the sport, if that makes good sense. It's like,
only watch
I'm
team roping.
signed up. Well, and no, I'm sorry, with my partner. So like I'm signed up with that guy. He's my guy. And, if I get to a point, it's been a very long time, more than a decade that I started the season, and I was like, man, well, I take that back. The year that I got divorced, I quit 100%, quit the sport, and then came back and made the finals. But I was done for about 30 days there, and I kind of
was that 2018.
2018. That's exactly right. Yep. So I kind of think about my life. I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I kind of think about it like I had like almost 3 or 4 careers already. You could break it down however you want. And I think I got a couple ahead of me. And the reason I say that is, I started roping when I was 14, and it was like rope for a living. So this the simple quote, like that's the one goal. And it took me a few years to really accomplish that. I mean, I guess I technically roped for a living, but my mom and dad fed me and I lived in their house.
Right.
But when I was 18, I moved out at 18. I got married at 19. And I worked some other odd jobs. I worked in a machine shop, actually waited tables at Applebee's for a while. I've chased this rabbit a long ways, but what I was trying to get to is, throughout my career, I have almost always finished the season with the guy that I started with, regardless if we finish 46th or we finish 16th, or, I've battled for a title in Vegas. I haven't got one yet, which, I have intentions. But that being the case, within that though, I have always viewed it like it's our decisions that we make that determine our success.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not seeing that these other guys, they just head better than my guy in a certain window. The decisions they're making are allowing them to be more competitive, in this spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so depending on, the level of communication you got with your partner, which my communication's gotten much better over the years. But depending on the level of communication, we can just make those same decisions or better ones, frankly, than what the best guys are making. And then we can compete at a higher level. If we're not willing to make those decisions, or I'm willing and my partner isn't, then that's where I start to see a bit of division, and that they need to go in another direction. I've had several partners do really good with me and then go on and do really good in other fields or venues. Drew Horner, the first guy I made the national finals rodeo with, he actually runs a shipping company, delivers Zen. It's in Dallas, and it's his baby. He worked for his dad for a while, and then he started his own deal. Very successful. He just moved to a big company. We stay in touch, talk regularly. He's got 2 kids. I got 2 kids. I stayed on the rodeo trail. He went there. I think we're both successful. But that being the case, he makes a shit ton more money than me.
Yeah.
I have no idea. What I do know though is he seems happy and I'm happy. But our happiness, our joy, our peace split at a point. I think that's something that maybe the whole world's not that good at, is like your childhood friends, just because you don't talk to them every single day doesn't mean they're any less valuable. But your passion, your desire, your calling drew you this way, and then the other one drew the other way. And sometimes it draws you back together.
That's so true.
So within that, I do see what everyone's doing because I love the sport. But I'm not much on, mid-season switching around or whatever, because I only see it. If I didn't think you were all in, I wouldn't have signed up with you.
Uh-huh.
And if at a point in the season you're not all in and it's not dangerous, to my family, you get distracted by something that's a danger to me or my family, that'd probably be about the only way that I'd bail out on you. But within that, I also, I I guess, obscenely confident that I can make up for a lot of what isn't going perfect, in several different ways, within the team. But I usually do most of the planning, most of the navigating, most of the entering, but I try to stay in really good touch with my partner on, is your horse feeling tight, or is he feeling free? You think we should enter this way this week or that way this week? And then try to take up the slack, the whatever, the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. drives and whatever, not that I do all of them. I'm just saying I haven't had a guy ask me in 15 years to drive and me be like, man, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Now if I get tired driving, I'm going to pull over before I wreck. But I just haven't left a guy hanging. I never jump out of the rig and go with my butts because it'd be more fun or whatever.
Right.
I try to pull my weight.
It's like a masterclass for Jen right now, honestly.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Do you think that it's more difficult to, in my opinion, it's easier to, as a beginner, to go catch a steer around the neck or the horns,
Sure,
run up kind of behind them and lay it on them, than it is to heel a steer by 2 feet?
Yep.
Would you agree with that as a professional team roper?
Yeah. So I think that you can look at it two different ways. I think one argument that people are going to have if you watch the sport very long, let's say that at any given big slack, particularly a one header, you're going to have about 30 to 40% of the headers do their job. And of the 30 or 40% that get out of the barrier and turn a pretty good steer, about 80% of the heelers are going to do their job. So there's a transition point in here. I'm not saying that it makes the overall sport easier as far as the heeling is concerned, but there is a transition point where the risk needs to be taken. And heelers, let's just say by the time you get your PRCA card, you're heeling almost all of your steers within 2 strides of the turn, almost everyone. So that being the case, the separation, the timing of the run really comes back to the header. And so the draping it on the head isn't good enough.
Yes.
Catching everyone isn't good enough. Getting out of the barrier and throwing a coil isn't good enough. And most of that's not good enough for the 3 headers, let alone the 1 headers. So the really, really special elite part of the heading is figuring out how to get out of the barrier, use your rope, and use an amazing horse. I heard Charmaine say, WPRA said, 1 in 100, 1% that we're working with. And I'm going to say within the head horses, it's not far off of that either. It's probably not the same horse as the 1 in 100 in the barrels, but let's say it's the second fastest horse who also has the sense to be able to score and enough cow to go to the cow, and then the heeling, there's going to be more out of 100 that you could pro rodeo on. Not that deserve horse of the year.
Right.
I think that's actually a pretty similar category in every event.
Right.
Because horse of the year is comparing that 1%, right?
Yeah.
But within that, yes, you're right in saying that the baseline job of the header, get out of the barrier, drape it on, it's going to be easy. More people are going to pick it up faster.
So you're saying there's less headers that you could make the NFR with than there is heelers that Clay Smith could take. There's a lot of heelers that Clay Smith could maybe, or Caleb Jiggers are the best headers.
Sure.
Let's say you take the best 5 headers in the world, they could make the NFR with more heelers that, in your opinion, than you could take headers to the NFR.
Well, now here's where we've got to go in a rabbit hole, because when we take it out of the, what I would say, out of context a little bit, and we're isolating this to rodeoing and making the NFR. Well, there's another factor in there that I think actually what I would wager is many times your younger headers make the finals with veteran heelers. And most of the time your younger heelers make the final with veteran headers. I don't know that anybody's done this statistic.
Right.
But I actually think that's probably pretty equal, because I think we have to throw another factor in there, and that is that many of the headers who are capable of making the national finals rodeo, they know how hard it is. They know how hard it is to find that horse. They know how they need to ride that horse, because they're not just thinking about 2025. They're thinking about 2027. They're thinking about when they want to retire, whatever. They're trying to stretch it out. Well, a lot of times they get beat by a young guy with a pretty good horse. And I heard a great quote, balls clean.
A guy with a pretty good horse.
with his balls clanging.
that guy may beat the best header on the best horse on the day, because the best guy is thinking about years. That guy's thinking about today.
Wow.
So I think it's pretty equal on the NFR. Where I was going with it was a little bit more of that elite group of headers is probably smaller most of the time than the elite group of healers.
Gotcha.
But we're still taking 15.
Right.
So, it's kind of funny how small, you've probably experienced that in your career. That is a tiny number of guys and so hard to penetrate early. As you've accomplished making the finals a few times, you've had a late season rush and you photo finished, you've made it, early summer. It's hard to make it in the winter now. It's probably doable, but it just doesn't seem like nobody does. 65,000 at Houston, and you still need another 50,000.
Yep.
So that being the case, but you made it early and it felt easy. That group seems bigger to me. 15 seems like a big group. I think 30 guys rodeo hard enough to deserve to be there in every event. But I mean, in team roping, I just watch it year after year. 30 guys are doing their best. They're buying the horses. They're borrowing money. They're chartering flights. They're trying, really hard. The great news is I made my first San Antonio. I qualified to my first San Antonio rodeo. Actually, I was 46th in the standing in 2012, and Brock Cresta passed away. He, at the end of the year, I had less than he had in July. And that let me get into my very first San Antonio. I won my first San Antonio and made my first NFR. $19,000. Jeff Flanagan, my current partner, last year, that only took 40 to San Antonio, but he got in San Antonio 40th, $49,000. Wow. So to kind of look at that 45th spot, the point I'm getting to, this is good. I'm not saying it's harder to make money. I'm saying it's actually the 30th guy may be able to charter and buy horses and do whatever. And I'm not saying he can do that for 5 years and be making money, but he may not be just totally losing his tail right now. And that's good. That's brownie points to where rodeo's going. Committee stepping up, whether it be equal money or across the board, kind of like Joe B said. Elko used to have $2,000. I don't think I went to Elko until I roped with Andrew Ward. I think that's the first time I ever went.
COVID,
so that had been 2019, 20, somewhere in there. And then now here we are, tour rodeo, 16, 18,000 aside, and the team roping equal money. It's like, it's almost a can't miss rodeo. I mean, we're up there, more guys are skipping the California run now, limited entry out there, but more guys are skipping it because over the 4th, we're going to, depending on your schedule, but 8 rodeos that add 20,000 plus.
We just got done talking to Shane Hanchy, and we talked to Matt Reeves. He said 88 rodeos added $10,000 even across the board this year.
Yeah.
88 rodeos. I mean, we get to go to 80. Every official rodeo. You know, you got to go to your circuit rodeos, and you might duck off, whatever, but 88 rodeos add $10,000. I just started rodeoing in 2018, and I was going to some that added 5. I know that.
Sure.
I remember that vividly, and I mean, I don't know. It's crazy where rodeo's growing.
Yes.
More guys are all in, it feels like. Like you're saying, your point I think you're making is 45th in the world with 17,000 when you started rodeoing. Now it's 40 to 50,000, but there's more guys that are going through August, through the Caldwell week, through the summer, and giving it all they have.
It makes more sense. There is one string along factor, good or bad. We have the opportunity to be 24th in the tour or to have done well at the NFR Open and get into Puyallup, and nearly everyone at Puyallup have a good rodeo, go to Sioux Falls and make the NFR. And whether that is good or bad, I can say for me personally, that's good. I actually haven't been to Sioux Falls yet. It ended up really strange the way things worked. I'm pretty much up to date on stuff, but it snuck up on me a little bit that it was going to be 8 in the tour the first year. And then last year I just did poorly in the tour. And so I didn't get to go to Sioux Falls. But that being the case, what I was trying to say is, the string along, kind of keeping the carrot, 2 carrots, if you will, out there, like, oh, we're doing bad in the standings, good in the points. We're doing good in the points, bad in the standings. It can actually serve, it could actually break somebody, to a point, but what's it going to take for you to quit? Like what's and so at the end of the day, that's the spot to me is I'm not going to I'm not trying to discourage my kids from anything that they want to do. But I also think if I am slightly lacking in support and they go do something else, they didn't have it.
Yeah.
And, I know for me personally, like there's basically one thing, God's in my family and everybody's got a different view, but I call him Father. Mm-hmm. And I had a good earthly father. I have a great heavenly Father. Mm-hmm. And so my family is all that matters. And I could drop this mic right now, not finish this podcast, never look at my horses again, let somebody else take care of them, and go be with my family for the rest of my life and not miss anything. Like that doesn't take anything away from me to walk away permanently. On the flip side, this serves my family. Rodeo does. So point I'm getting to within rodeo, I didn't start with that much maturity. I loved roping and frankly it was like, well, you can rope and have a family, right? Well, now I have a family and I rope. Mm-hmm. And so that being the case, point I'm getting to is I think this is a wonderful place for us to raise families if that's what we're choosing to do. My dad tried really hard, but he averaged at least 60 hours a week at his job. We never hired a mechanic. We never hired a plumber. We never hired an electrician. We had some horses and cows. We weren't really farmers, but we lived in the country. All the rest of my family were farmers and ranchers. Point I'm getting to is, I got my dad's extra time, and not that he failed me by any means, but after you put in a good 60 hours at a job you don't love, he didn't get to do what he was passionate about his whole life, after you put in 60 hours of what you don't love, and then you change the oil in the truck and you fix a broken water line and you do whatever and you got 5 kids. That's what I got. And that's fine and good. But I drove back all night, got to bed at 5:30 this morning. Kids wake up at 8:30. Maybe I get out of bed at 9. But from then until I started doing this deal, I was just with my kids and we didn't do anything spectacular. But, this facilitates 30, 40 hours a week on average that I'm with my kids, and that being the case,
time, I mean,
sure. And that being the case, they do what I want. Like, I'm not just following my kids around like, look, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do we want to do on the iPad, But my little boy, if I'm running somebody else's skid steer, I don't have my own, but if I'm running it, he wants to be in the skid steer with me. They'll be in the tractor cab. I got a tractor with a cab. Andrew and I had a great NFR 2023. I kind of had my taxes lined out to win 100, 155, almost got a buckle. And I come back and I'm kind of like, I've got a little extra here. So we go get a tractor with a cab. So now the kids can get in there. We have air conditioning, radio. But that being the case, I didn't care about any of that for me, but it was like, it's for the kids. And the point I'm getting to is, within that dynamic, what I see within rodeo, I don't think anybody thinks it's crazy. It's getting a little crazier to borrow money for student loans, but I don't think anybody thinks it's crazy as a whole to borrow money, go get an education. Nobody thinks it's crazy to, start a plumbing company and borrow money to go get a plumbing truck and supplies and tools, go get an education on how to do plumbing. It's becoming less crazy to borrow money to go get a truck and a trailer and borrow money to go buy a good horse. If that's your passion and that's what you're willing to spend your time, we're literally dying for this, right? We have a certain amount of time. We don't know how much time's in the account when we're spending it. Well, this is what we decided to spend it on. But that being the case, it's not as crazy as it was. There are more and more guys who are stepping away from rodeo, and the businesses and relationships and things that they fostered while they were here are providing a good future for them and their family. On the flip side of that, we all know a few of those burnout stories, that guys that won about everything they could win, maybe championships. And then at the end, they might have had a couple trinkets left over and they might have hawked those, to get the last hit of cocaine or get to the last rodeo.
All right, guys, another weekly segment coming at y'all of Rodeo for Dummies presented by Shady Rays. Our friends over at Shady Rays have you covered for all your premium polarized shades needs. If you need some nice shades, Shady Rays is the place to go.
Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized sunglasses that won't break the bank.
Shady Rays is a proudly independent sunglasses company that can rival even the most expensive brands.
It ain't always you get what you pay for, because with Shady Rays, they can rival anybody.
Affordable.
Double frames. Crystal clear optics, bro. And they're affordable. But if yours go MIA or they break, their lost and broken protection plan will take care of you for up to 30 days.
Exclusively for Let's Freakin' Rodeo listeners, you can use code LFR35 for 35% off at shadyrays.com.
You can join over 300,000 customers to leave a 5-star review.
Thanks, Shady Rays, for sponsoring Rodeo for Dummies. Let's get into it. Explain what Crossfire is in team roping.
Sure. So in team roping, in the healing, we have a rule that we believe supports integrity of the event, and it's called the Crossfire Rule. The reason this was implemented was anybody could periodically get lucky and heal a steer prior to the steer being turned and pulled by the header. Anybody could do it at any point, to the point that sometimes healers would throw before the header threw because this particular steer is easier to rope there or whatever. When you're actually doctoring an animal in the pasture, that's where team roping started. We head something that's too big to flank and tie, too big to leg down, and we heal them so that we're able to actually stretch them out. Well, in order to heal them, they have to be in tow. If they're loose out there and you throw at the feet, they almost always stop, they change direction, they do whatever. So we need this animal to be in tow. Well, the only way we can actually get them in tow, I guess there's more than one way. The best way is to change the direction of the animal. So the animal is going one way, we're going to change it. You keep letting them go that way, the only way you can actually tow them is to pass them, and that's an ineffective way to doctor animals. So what you'll do in the pasture is somebody's going to actually rope the front end, typically the horns if they have them, or rope them around the neck. They're going to turn them in a different direction. You can turn them to the right, but if you're right-handed, you're going to be going the wrong way. So you typically turn them to the left, and when they get in tow, then we're going to heal them. So we're all in a straight line. So the header is actually able to help the healer pull the slack out. Mm-hmm. Now with the Crossfire, where that rule started getting implemented was guys were trying to heal prior to that animal actually being in tow. So they were trying to actually throw the heel loop before the steer was turned. And so it's unrealistic to what was actually going on in real ranch and real rodeo. And so, the best comparison I could give would be if we started Velcroing saddle bronc riders onto the saddle and judging them, or, we took the headstall off in the barrel racing and made them ride. It's like, well, this isn't what we would do on the ranch. So we want to get back. We want to maintain that integrity a little bit. Where a lot of the confusion came from is where does that exact point come from? And it is much, much easier to judge the team roping on a typical run than it is the rough stock. It is much easier to drop the flag within 5/10 of the run being over than it is to judge within 5 points of what that ride was and watch the mark out. Right. So typically our judges within rodeo have been guys that have more experience on the rough stock side of things, because that's a much harder event to judge. Yeah. I can literally sit here and we can bet over under, and I'm going to get 50% of them right if somebody's any good, and vice versa. When I start saying 81, you get a good saddle bronc rider or a good bull rider, anybody that's watched a lot of rough stock, they can get me 9 out of 10 times on the over under, because I've been watching this my whole life. I'm not super passionate about it. Point I'm getting to is our judges are more educated in the rough stock. It is required that they're more educated. It would be better as a whole if we were able to afford timed event judges that were experts in timed events, and rough stock judges that were experts. At this particular point, I don't know that that's practical, but the Crossfire itself, the reason that it comes up so much is the differentiation between that direction change and the steer actually being in tow. And many times people come back and talk about strides of the steer. Steers do not stride exactly the same. So the confusion is when people are expecting that steer's hips to go out, his legs hit the ground, and then he gets pulled forward. Well, that's generally what most people have thought. If the steer's hips go out and they hit the ground, he's legal. Well, what if they go out again? Is that the completion of the initial switch, or is the initial switch multiple strides? There's been a lot of confusion. So we went in and rewrote the rule. The judging has been very, very consistent the last couple of years, much better than it was prior to the rewriting of the rule. And where we brought a lot of clarity to it was when the steer is in tow, you can heal him. So we're less concerned about the swing, the switch. We still use that as a reference within the sport of team roping, but we're more concerned about, is he pulling the steer? So we've made it slightly more liberal. Let's say a steer's fresh and he's moving to the left and a header's horse is really fast and he heads him, and that steer maybe doesn't go quite 90 degrees, but he is being towed by the head horse. Well, he's going to be legal. Or let's say a steer checks off and steps to the right and the header heads him and he turns him really sharp right there. Well, a lot of times those hips are going to swing more, but so long as his forward motion is basically better
right.
than his downward, than going down the arena, then he's going to be legal.
Question: is that why y'all healers now? So you're talking about if he's in toe, that's the rule now. But before, you're waiting almost for him to get 90 degrees before you throw. But now y'all are throwing when sometimes the steer is not even really turned left.
Correct. So it's primarily based on the majority of the cow now, would probably be the best way to define it. So let's say this steer weighs 450 pounds. If 250 pounds are headed left, then he's probably legal. If 200 pounds are headed left, he's probably not. So it's a little bit less. Now, that being the case, the main reason that it's sped up is just everybody's getting better. So most runs, I bet I saw 5 questionable runs this winter that I was like, it could go either way. And one of them might have been me for all I know. But it could have went either way. And for the most part, those were flagged clean. When we went through a little bit of a dramatic stage was the guys were getting better. And then there also got to be, and we spoke lightly on this earlier, there also got to be a little bit of a fence between some contestants overreacting and some judges overreacting. I think both sides were in the wrong. And so we actually had a day of this at Wesley Thorpe's house, and Wesley was involved in some of that drama also, and he was kind enough and organized enough to host it. We got a bunch of judges together. We got the cameras out. We went slow-mo. We brought in professional team roping judges to help educate these guys, and they were humble enough, kind enough to question these judges who do not judge rough stock. They judge timed events, and they flag thousands of runs every weekend where there's questionable runs every time. And props to the PRCA, Wesley, this group of judges for going to that step and actually benefiting the contestant. I was around for the runs that Wesley made. They were questionable runs. The people are like, it was a blatant, obviously bad call. It wasn't obvious. I've been doing this for 25 years. It wasn't obvious. Wesley throws really fast. He did a really good job. It was really up to the judge to make the call. Was a mistake made? Potentially, but it was not obvious that he was trying to really mess Wesley over. At least on some of the calls. I can't say that I saw every one, but I was around for a call or two where it was questioned. Other contestants as well, it was questioned. And honestly, times when maybe it should have been questioned, if we're going to question. And that was one of the big problems was the blow-ups were typically happening in slack, postponing and delaying slacks. And then in perfs, they weren't allowing it. So let's say that you run in the slack and you have the opportunity to talk to the guy and overturn the call. Bit. Well, that's disadvantage to the guy who drew up in the perf. So, but anyway, I think we've cleared a lot of that up now. But primarily where the question mark is the steer in tow. And when he's actually being pulled, he's actually to the end of the rope and the header is actually in control of the majority of the steer. His back legs can go in or out a little bit and is still considered legal.
Really and truthfully, I mean, this is a college basketball player. I don't know if you've heard that on the podcast, but you talk about Tim Donaghy, Scott Foster, NBA refs actually gambling on the games that they're reffing. Let's just say fixing them. I think we're pretty blessed with judges overall in the PRCA that are trying their best. And how many people could efficiently judge 8 events in rodeo? You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, I think a great question here is, I'll answer the question, but right now I don't have enough passion for rodeo to stay and judge afterwards. Do you?
Who does?
Do you want to go be a judge and never be a contestant? So within that, you have to love rodeo to be there. And to me, when we demonize these guys and we corner them on this, we are 100% putting, there has to be some assumption. I know a lot of these guys personally, and I know their kids rodeo and their grandkids are now rodeoing and they rodeoed. And it's just to just immediately go to, foul languages and names and stuff. It's like, man, this is like you already had like preconceived offense to assume that he had a preconceived call.
Yeah.
Has it happened? I'm sure that there have been mistakes made before the day started that occasionally they've demonized or accurately misled, accused. They've accurately accused these guys. But honestly, my experience with those guys, I've became pretty good friends with several of them, and man, they love rodeo. They tried hard enough.
Really and truthfully, I mean, this is a college basketball player. I don't know if you've heard that on the podcast, but you talk about Tim Donaghy, Scott Foster, NBA refs actually gambling on the games that they're reffing. Let's just say fixing them. I think we're pretty blessed with judges overall in the PRCA that are trying their best. And how many people could efficiently judge 8 events in rodeo? You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, I think a great question here is, I'll answer the question, but right now I don't have enough passion for rodeo to stay and judge afterwards. Do you?
Who does?
Do you want to go be a judge and never be a contestant? So within that, you have to love rodeo to be there. And to me, when we demonize these guys and we corner them on this, we are 100% putting, there has to be some assumption. I know a lot of these guys personally, and I know their kids rodeo and their grandkids are now rodeoing, and they rodeoed, and it's just to just immediately go to, foul languages and names and stuff. It's like, man, this is like you already had like preconceived offense to assume that he had a preconceived call.
Yeah.
Has it happened? I'm sure that there have been mistakes made before the day started that occasionally they've demonized or accurately misled, accused. They've accurately accused these guys. But honestly, my experience with those guys, I've became pretty good friends with several of them, and man, they love rodeo. They tried hard enough. Did they not?
No, I thought they did. It was a horse.
Gotcha. They've tried as hard as they could at a point, and frankly, I think most of them will give the guy that's doing the best. They're going to give him an advantage in unintentionally. Like I remember watching. He's from Oklahoma also, but I remember watching Billy Ettbauer and thinking like, I don't know if that was actually a better ride than the other guy, but if you would have asked me, and I don't know enough about sport, I'm just saying, he's a wonderful human being, but I don't know if that was a better ride. But then I remember thinking, how else would you ride? You'd have to ride like Billy if you were a bronc rider, right?
You'd have to.
Like, so if he did it, it's got to be the right way. Like, I don't know if it was right. And, he would just crumple and be like this far off the ground and this big around and lay there for about, 25 seconds catching his air and then stand up bow-legged and limp out. But I'm like, well, I don't know if it was a better ride, but if I was going to start riding, I'd ride like him.
Yeah.
And so I think within that, naturally there's going to be guys who the judge likes the way that horse faces better or likes the way that heel horse stops better or whatever. But I mean, we're hiring a judge, it's not somebody who's brought out there to make sure that we play well with each other. It's somebody to come out there and determine this is a winner and this is a loser on the day. And the only time I really appreciate it when a tie goes to the runner. Many times the runner, I'm not saying they never do it intentionally, but many times it costs the runner $6,000, on that particular go round or that average that he got flagged out on. And it only cost the next guy $1,200.
If that, yeah.
And so within that, I think, and I know it happens with jerk downs in your event, and sometimes it's questionable, sometimes it's blatant. And when it's blatant, honestly, I have not seen a blatant one. I have not seen a blatant crossfire argued by any professional contestant.
No, exactly.
Like when it's been an absolute crossfire, I've done it. I've been at the rodeo and crossfired, and I knew it was wrong, and he flagged me out, and I silently rode out, and we talked at the next rodeo. We didn't even talk about the run. It was just like, that's how much time wild card at San Antonio last year. I knew how much time I thought I had to throw, and I threw, and I was right at with the throw, but I was wrong with the catch. I caught him before, but if I would have taken one more swing and not been a crossfire, I also wouldn't have made it out of the wild card. It wasn't where I wanted to be, and it wasn't the throw I wanted to take, but the clock was running.
Yeah. So where do you live?
I live in Stephenville now.
You live in Stephenville now. I mean, there's so many open jackpots, like multiple a week that's going on. Are you avid jackpotter? You ease back on the jackpot and you practice? Like, how do you stay sharp?
That's a great question. So more recently, I have been studying that myself, like kind of accumulating data. I think that, well, I'll share exactly what I'm doing. Right now, it is a need to go basis. If I'm going to get a lot of value out of it and I need to go, then I will. Also, I rope to eat. So I frequent the stockyards 30 times a year, maybe. I get 10 to 15,000 out of there, to my taxes every year. It's an hour from the house. And, but my point being, the jackpots, the costs and reward are kind of difficult when you butt heads with the best guys every single day, 80% payback. Frankly, they're all good people. I every one of them, but the stock contractors win. That's how that deal goes. Now, if you can get more value out of that, you're taking a 6-year-old heel horse that you hope is going to be good when they're 8, or you're trying to build a run with somebody, or you've got this horse, you leased him, you're going to try him, and you need some real life stuff. There's several ways to double dip. Some guys, they have a pay gig. So somebody's paying their way, whether it be a partner, an individual, a sponsor, or excuse me, the maybe somebody that owns horses, like the futurity guys, they jackpot more kind of as a rule now. They try to get them horses exposed between futurities. And so they may occasionally, kind of sacrifice a win for the sake of making that horse perform good. Most of the jackpots are set up pretty stressful compared to the futurities, so I'm not saying a lot of guys do that. But for me personally, I've probably cut back to about 50 jackpots a year. I think probably my peak right before I had my daughter, which at that time, I don't take any outside horses. I don't do any lessons or any clinics right now. I love all that stuff, but kind of my peak year there, I was still doing that stuff. I went to 200 events. So it would have been around 100 rodeos. I think we were fishing 75. This would have been in 2021, which everybody, we were COVID crazy, basically. It was like, you have anything, I'm going, but I think I went to 200 events that year, which really high number for me, about 100 rodeos, about 100. But I went to the slide. I know I had one horse that I was trying to get really good with, and it paid off, but I went 11 days in a row. I jackpotted on that horse within an hour of Stephenville.
So you just said you're collecting data. 2021 just so happens to be a year that you had a pretty huge, remarkable win and remarkable NFR.
Yes.
Do you think that has anything to do with how much you went that year, or
yes.
just,
Sure. Yeah. I think it feeds over, really good. I think the number one factor on that NFR that, maybe hasn't been considered, is, Andrew got out there, and I'm not saying he's on a deficit, but this is his second finals, but his first one in the building. And he didn't have a good feel for the start. I don't think anybody really realized it. They knew he was being late, right? But I think nobody realized, like, he rode out of the arena disappointed 8 out of 10 nights.
Right.
He was not disappointed. One night we got a loper and he got a good start. We didn't hardly win nothing in the round, but he got a good start one time out of 10. And then the 10th round, he wasn't disappointed because we offset the record. I don't have the record now. I know who has it. I don't know how fast they were. I don't know how fast I was. I know when I started team roping, Jake and Clay were 59.1 on 10 steers, and that record stood for 20 some years. And then I broke it, and breaking their record means something. Breaking my record don't mean nothing, but breaking their record was neat.
Well, it means a lot, but that's why I wanted to bring it up, because no one really discusses it, So
sure.
Tanner broke it in 2022. I don't remember how fast he was, but you were 54.7 on 10 that year in 2021. I think maybe that's almost 5 seconds.
We darn near could have got it with a leg, and I wasn't. Man, I watched the statistics So let's say we're at a truck roping, right? One guy's going to win big on the day, almost every truck roping. So I need to have all the information. I need to know how many points they're given. I need to know where they're giving the points away. Like one of the trucks I won one time, I won the truck. I won $350. I was in Amarillo, Texas. I didn't win enough to fuel that truck up and drive it back to Grove, Oklahoma, where I was living at the time. But they gave the points away. First place got 30 points. 20th got 10 points. So I knew they were giving the points away that way. So I strategized throughout the day to keep my teams alive. And I had a couple chances for good money and we had some mistakes, but I have like 17 of the top 50 callbacks. And then I end up with like 7 of the top 20 spots. Nobody even knew I won the truck. Several guys won first, second, and fourth. And they're like, oh, he got the truck. Well, that didn't beat 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, So that's my dog. That being the case, within the NFR, I do think how much I went that year really helped. But I had some PTSD from my first finals in Vegas, 2013. I didn't rope good. I did what I thought was the right stuff. Like I literally went and bought a practice head horse so I could hire somebody to string muleys in the chute, because I knew Speed Williams roped muleys, and like I tried to accumulate a lot of data. It wasn't the best setup for me at the time. And it wasn't the greatest setup for my horses. And I want to go around, and I did okay with Drew out there, but I left the night after the 10th round, and I had the horses saddled, cattle wrapped and loaded, and I practiced for the NFR at 8 a.m. Monday morning in Kansas. So 20-ish hour drive, and I was there 30 some hours later practicing,
2014
degrees, 2013.
2013 December, right after the national finals.
Yep.
You're practiced on Monday when it finished Monday Saturday night.
Yep. And I figured it out. And I actually got really good that winter. That was one of the best winters I ever had. I came off. I win 17,000 the first day of the year. We go Super Tuesday at Odessa. I win the American qualifier. I won the roping. I won the ProAm. I did good in the match. And something else was that day. But anyway, it was a very hard day to win 10,000, let alone like I win 17 on the day. And at that time, I was still roping with Drew. And then that winter, we come off the winter top 5, win Fort Worth. I actually go to the American and get beat out to be in the final 4 for $1 million. I get beat out by 1/100th of a second or something. But I really did rope good that winter. And the NFR taught me a lot. I don't think, people could argue with me on this if they want to. I don't think that winners or competitive people are determined by their losses. I think that's kind of like determining how you're going to live your healthy life by how somebody lives with cancer or with an illness, right? Like I don't think that's my opinion. So what my opinion is, I was working toward greatness at that time. And like that's really kind of a window that I was almost finishing a career, if you would. We're so lucky in team roping. I'm really blessed, and I probably wouldn't ever started if I didn't think I had, a 20+ year career. Because I was really terrible beginner. We're so lucky that we get to kind of have. I was so terrible. I couldn't ride. I couldn't swing. I couldn't do anything good. And I started at 14, and that's difficult. That's kind of why it took me so long. Not that I was that old, but I was 26 at my first NFR. And now it's becoming more popular for guys to struggle a little longer. But so many guys were making it at 18, 19, 20 years old. So few guys are making it at 18, 19, and 20 now. Yeah. Like it's actually less. And we have the most talented 18, 19, and 20-year-olds right now. Yeah. More than we had even, Jade's he's the last young guy to impress me. He wasn't younger than me, but I mean, in the window, I'm like, holy smokes, this guy is almost perfect. But these guys are better than him when he was that age. Now, you got to take everything in consideration. Like I said, we're not doing hawk injections maybe in 2008. Like, who knows? Right. Like these guys are getting better horses. They got better data. We've got multiple team roping websites that you can watch almost every pro break it down for you. I was watching The Winning Edge with Jake and Clay. It was shot in the 80s. I'm watching it in the early 2000s. I'm watching Quest for the Perfect Run. I think it's shot in the 90s with Dan Green and Al Bach. And this is in 2010. Like there was so much less information, and now there's more. Maybe we're a little bit overinformed sometimes.
That's interesting. I never really thought about that, but I mean, the team roping world, you got X Factor, Team Roping Journal, all these different sources that are putting. I mean, how many NFR guys are out there putting? What do they do? Have you seen them? What do you call that?
Like the courses, right?
Yeah, they're doing the little courses, the little instructional videos.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about maybe 5 to 7 of the top 15 guys in the world.
I think more guys are doing it than not, actually.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm part of the X Factor group. We're not really. I don't even know that I have a contract that I'm exclusive. You know, but we kind of help with different groups. We still do some other shoots, but yeah, I think actually, if you look into it, there's probably as many guys doing it as aren't. And that's like real time. Like I got to meet Al in 2006. So I've already roped for 6 years. I'm 20 years old, and he's like one of the first pros. I got to meet Speed in 2006. They were not, like, outside of a school, they were not giving me any direct pointers. You sign up for X Factor coaching group right now. We're actually making a move to website right now. It's been on Facebook for a while, a closed group, but you sign up and you may sign up today, get in the coaching group today, post a video today, and within 5 minutes have Tyler Wade, Colton Schmidt, myself, and Jade all tell you what we think can help you with your roping. That can happen in 1 minute. You can have all of it. So it's a dynamic change, which, we're still decades behind other sports,
right?
The coaching and the physical fitness, nutrition, whatever. We're so much in the Stone Age, which all of that stuff plays a bit to my advantage. Not that I'm that healthy or that knowledgeable, but it all plays to my advantage a little that, I've got to see people come and go for so many different reasons in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
But that being my career, I know I kind of got off the track, but first NFR, drive straight home and practice. And so when I come back in 18, Ivy and I are very close to an elite team. I made it with Lane Ivy, so there's a 4 or 5 year gap there. But I come back in 18 with Ivy. We're very close to an elite team. Like, we're making phenomenal runs, and he blows the barrier out on the first one. The hardest single thing to do in the sport of team roping rodeo is to nail the barrier in the first round of your first NFR in Vegas. It is very, very hard. No one can communicate. Coleman Proctor's Heisman, he double barrel back kicks the box pad almost every time, every year. You know what I mean? Like, and he's the best horse there, I think. Like, he is amazing. But that being the case, Ivy, which his hands are really fast, he uses a spider, his rope's really fast. He blows it out. He's on top of him, and it curls off the right horn, which, for people who know anything about team roping, like, that's a miss that you just ignore. You can't hardly do it on purpose, and it's not really a bad job. It's just your action just comes all the way back around, comes off. It's like curling off the neck. I mean,
it's a fluke deal that you don't worry about.
Yes. Yeah. And you just cannot worry about it. So that being the case, he's a little bit bummed out about it. Well, then I would be lying, but I'm thinking he misses 2 more in a row or something like that. And everybody and their dog sitting on the couch telling him how to head now, whatever. We win a go around and kind of turns the right way. And then kind of took turns struggling throughout. And maybe we get off about the same as what I had with Drew Horner, like probably placing 5 rounds or something. Don't place in the average. Going into 2020, it was like God's gift to Andrew and I, because he doesn't really have a building horse, or at least he doesn't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And his horse was really, really veering when we started our partnership, like bad. Like, he tipped over a lot of cows. And so I ended up hazing a lot. Well, then they opened that building up over there, and it's like, well, I can haze them for days over here. It's 150 yards to the left fence.
Yeah.
So I could haze. And I missed the first steer out at that NFR. And I know the steer, that year we didn't have 3 fresh pins. We had 1 old pin, and he was really a bad steer, and he hadn't hardly been caught all year and shouldn't have been at the NFR, frankly. He got caught 1 out of 4 goes there. And I missed him the very first night, run a wheel bearing off my truck on the way home, and it just kind of a hard start. Now, battle back and have a chance at the championship.
On the way home,
round.
like an hour and a half?
Yeah, like an hour from the house.
Sorry.
Point I'm getting to, the 10th round, we actually battled back, had a chance at a title, caught the cow, kind of went the other way. It's like, when we do the math at the end, Paul won the world that year. Paul wins the round and I win fourth. If I win the round and he wins fourth, I win the world. Peyton Bray could have won it. They come in winning the average, won the average, maybe didn't place in the last round. There's probably 5 guys had a chance. Joseph Harrison won the American that year, counted 50,000. He kind of, I like to call vacation rodeo. That's what I usually do in the summer. He vacation rodeoed, gets there, still has a chance for the title at the end. So there were several of us battling. My point being, come off really good, but there was a part of me that was like, this finals doesn't completely count. Mm-hmm. We were roping for money. But, it's kind of like when they moved the fights the first time. Paid great. I think BFI belongs in Guthrie now, but the first time they moved it, we're like, BFI belongs in Reno, right? Yeah. COVID changed a lot of stuff for us. We're like, well, that's where the BFI belongs. That being the case, when we go to Vegas, I am exactly the right amount of confidence I think I could have caught 100 steers in a row. Like, I have the right amount of confidence to catch. I'm not sure what we're going to do in the wall. Like, because Andrew was actually really nervous a lot of times about his horse going down the fence. And so the plan is haze the steer, get him headed before we get to the wall, come back up the wall and face. Well, the first night I leave to haze, Andrew don't leave, miss the barrier, we run him way down there. Second night, miss the barrier, we run him way down there. Third night, and like we place in a couple rounds, a lot of times clean runs get paid. After the first couple rounds, a lot of clean runs get paid till you get to about 7, 8, 9, and it gets tight again. Then the 10th round usually falls apart. But that being the case, we're kind of placing along. Well, then it's only like round 5 and people start talking record talk, which I don't care. Like, honestly, the people that, I told, they're my friends over there at Team Rope and Journal, but maybe it was Chelsea Toy, maybe it was Kinder Santos at the time. But anyway, I get a call the year I'm 16th or something in the world, and they're like, hey, a lot of people don't really like talking about it. Do you mind talking about it? I'm like, I'll talk. I said, the first thing I said to him though was, I said, you didn't call me when I was 46 in the world. Nobody gave a shit. But when I'm 16th, now you want to call and talk about it. Point being, my grandma was there for me. My mom was there for me. All the people that are important, are there for you. When it's going wrong, I don't really care. It's not that media is bad. It's not whatever, but the people that are there when you're doing good, that's easy. That doesn't really do much. So people are talking record, round 5, whatever. But that being the case, I rope for money, and I have been aware of the title race a couple times, and the fact that, frankly, the title race is money. There's a lot of bonuses that aren't public knowledge when you win a title. Sponsors are interested. I get it. If you're Monster Energy drink, you want to come to rodeo, hey, let's start at the top. Let's start with the championships. If you're Ford Motor Company, start with the guys that have gold buckle. I get it. I would do the same thing. So, but those opportunities are there. And so if you get down to the end and you have a chance,
we talked about this yesterday.
Yeah. Well, you get down to the end and you have a chance. You got to do the math. I'm a gambler. Like, I play odds. I'm not big on bookies and sports I don't know about. But I go to the casino. I like to gamble, and I like to play cards. And so that being the case, within that year, world title race is over for us probably round 6. 2020, we're in it to round 10. Like, it kind of comes and goes a little. I miss one and you kind of feel like you're out of it. And there's actually more teams caught that year than you would have thought because there was more space. So runs could happen way out in the arena. Mm-hmm. That being the case, 21, we're not really in the race. 22, we're actually in the race pretty deep. And when we could chase every year, 23, it come right down to round 10. And it was just, we did our jobs and got a chance to win the world. Next team does their job. They're supposed to win the world. Next team does their job and they win the world. Mm-hmm. But point I was getting to, the 21, I really think what set that up was we roped great. We got great chemistry, and we got off on an average track early. And we felt like we were stuck to the track. Like I can't haze a lot if you miss the barrier in that building. And as much as I love Andrew, he missed the barrier 9 out of 10 times. So when I take off and I'm trying to step the steer and I got no partner to hold up the other side of the steer, right? I got to just back off. We run them down there and we catch them. And we're still, like I said, we're still placing along a little bit, but that's what really set us up, was kind of being locked on that average track where the blowouts, that's really what the crowd's there for, is when guys blow the barrier out, it's great runs, yes. And we didn't really make that many memorable runs at that particular NFR. Come back. And like we learned though a lot, and then come back, and Andrew started figuring out in 22 and I could have, all together, if we both do just a little bit better both times, we could have went back-to-back titles because we were a good enough team then. The first time, we were the catchingest team. Like 2020, we're the catchingest team in the world. 21, we're the catchingest team in the world. But we get to the finals, and they're beating our brakes off in the rounds. So we get out of there. But, I mean, I think we broke 100 every time. And then by 22, though, he figures the barrier out. 22, 23, and then last year with Colin, he's possibly the best header 3 years in a row. I hooked a dew claw in 23 that kind of changed the trajectory. Probably supposed to win the world. 7 out of 10, maybe we're projecting. I hooked a dew claw in round 7. That night, 3 healers, Patrick, myself, and Wesley, are all on track to win the world. All 3 of us have something funny happen. Not to get on the barrel racing train, but the ground's very deep. All our steers get turned the same spot, the same pin. They're all piggy. And all 3 of us have like a fishy, like heel them and can't get our slack pulled out and lose the cow, or put our rope down and the steer like hops and like steps on it, or just some fishy stuff. But anyway, that particular round, but that being the case, then we still come back, go 3-8, 3-6, 4 flat or something, and almost get it. But the 21 though, the long part of that deal was that, well, honestly, we're on a track to catch a lot, and we're not on track to battle for the title or to battle for the round. So it was almost like, just do what we're the single best. And I mean, his statistics are there that he's the turn in his header of this group of guys right now. Not necessarily the best. I mean, I think he is one of the best, but it's really up to everybody to decide what the best is. But if you turn the most cows, you're one of the best.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at, it's pretty simple numbers. You don't have to have opinions in that. Yes. The numbers is he's turned the most steers in the last 6 years.
Yep.
But so that was in my notes was 2020, the run y'all went on. I'm sure you know the number. How many runs in a row did y'all make clean, the under 5 flat or 5.5, whatever it was?
That's a great question. I remember when I started rodeoing, I was hanging out a decent amount. Jake Long's from Kansas, and I hung out more. In my early years, is like Jake Long, TG, a few guys from up around me. I kind of got to hang out with a little bit because I honestly didn't know that many other people. Like I said, I'm 08. I'm meeting a lot of them guys for the first time. I jackpot around them a little. 12's my rookie year, but I don't rodeo. Like I went decent amount over the 4th. Don't really go in August. Go a little bit at the end when they get back over there. Barely get in the buildings. Point being, 2013. I remember Jake Long and Chase Tryon were talking about trying to catch 100 in a row, which I think for everybody's, you absolutely pick your own goals. By no means am I criticizing their goals. But I remember thinking about that, and I remember, like, it just kind of stuck with me, which I've been a catching guy for a long time. It kind of stuck with me that the number in a row, and I actually did it for a while. I kept track, and I don't remember how high I got. I kept track, but what I remembered was that wasn't actually conducive because, like I was saying a minute ago, I'm kind of the wife of the team. Like, I got to take up the slack. So if my guy goes too far to win good money the second hop, or even the first hop, frankly, I need to throw it in the swerve and hope something works out. Flip flop, and I'm trying to do my 100 in a row, and he's setting them up to be healed the first stride off the turn or whatever. So that being the case, I didn't do it. What I can say, I did not keep track of those exact numbers, but it's the best I've ever seen anyone do. Period. And I know there was a month of no barriers, no legs, no misses from both of us, and it wasn't like a couple rodeos a week. And what else it wasn't a lot of average rodeos. It was one header after one header, paid $1,500. But I come off the winter.
COVID summer, dude.
Yeah. I come off the winter with 12,000 max.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't get to go to nothing after that. And so I start with 12,000. Can't even remember exactly where we start, but it's not Reno, but it's that time, right?
Yeah.
And I won 57,000 in the summer, which would have been enough to make it without the 12. But over the 4th, not to pick on Andrew, but just kind of how it went, there was a couple big hits. We got up bad. We drew bad. It was muddy, whatever. But we won at the most. We won 2,000, but I think we won like 1,500. So if you take the winner in the 4th at 13.5, we won 40. But anyway, when we get to the tour finale in Rapid, I think if we catch one steer, I win the regular season.
Wow.
Luke had rodeoed. He had won the American. Then he had rodeoed full time to get his partner in. Joseph had won the American, and then he didn't rodeo quite as hard in the summer. So I had a chance to catch, and I can't remember if it was Joe that ended up winning the regular season or what, but when it come right down to the end, I just need to catch one of the 2 steers we run at Rapid. We didn't catch either one. No big deal. But it was 30 days, but it was probably a little longer for me that I caught, like I said, when you start getting the same turn over and over again, you kind of have to be, you need to lack discipline to miss very many. It's like they don't have to be the perfect turn, but do the same thing for me a lot. I got a lot of discipline, and so I'll catch a lot. But I do know we went a month straight, all catches. Like there was no misses by Andrew, no legs, no barriers. And I don't know that we ever didn't place. Like I think we placed on every single steer. But that was right there was kind of a late season push, and that was when I started. I prophesied over our team, and when I say prophesied, a lot of it's hopeful, but I'm called to a successful life. But I mean, I spoke over us the Feists, which we didn't win what they called the BFI in, Guthrie, which is BFI now. I'm not trying to say it's not. We did win the one in Reno, but we were for sure the high money team. We made the short round. So the way that worked, we actually ended up getting to go to 2 in Reno. And we got to go to 4 together over there in Guthrie. We made the short round every time in Guthrie, and we won the roping once in Reno, and we led it the other time in Reno, and had kind of a weird pop off the ride or some funny deal happening like round 4 to go back to back there possibly. But that being the case, Reno, the American, the finals, like our stuff was all taking shape. And kind of just the vision that the Father had given me early on that our run was going to fit.
Mm-hmm.
And so not to speak out of both sides of my mouth, but when I signed up with Andrew, I didn't really have to change anything. He was a little bit stuck on a left route with a really fast runoff horse that he scored good. And I was a little bit stuck over hazing steers on a really fast runoff horse that scored good. And when I started running off and hazing him, and he started running off and heading him, it actually fit really well. And so we had that was the hashtag dream team for, 4 or 5 years there. And who knows, we might blend it again at some point. Like, it's not like there's nothing weird that we couldn't do it, but that window, when we get back together, we would, we'd have to go back to changing everything because we're both unique styles,
Right. Yeah. I mean, and both horses probably aren't in the same chapter of their life.
Correct. Yeah. Mine's 19. He's actually healthier now than he was for a couple of those years, but he's definitely different, athletically. Yeah.
Wow. One of the, back to the X Factor Open and all these different outlets for team roping, it's interesting because you think about any other discipline of rodeo, you can't do it after 40, 45, 50.
Yep.
But there's a whole generation of fans that rope till they're 65, 70, 75.
That's why barrel racing and team roping are the biggest industries in the world.
Yep.
Sure.
That's why those are the 2 biggest industries in our game.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah. Team roping. Yeah. We've surpassed, you guys probably have the stat. That's the only thing you need on your podcast, guys. You got to get the guy behind the scenes like Joe Rowe, and he's over there like pull this data.
We need Bootbarn. We need everybody come feed us, and then we'll start paying somebody.
Right. Yeah,
hey, get over there on that stat. Get your computer out. Get your laptop.
Point I'm getting to though is we could pull the stat, but horse racing, team roping passed everything now. We've passed horse racing.
Really?
We've passed every equine activity in the world now. We're the number 1 equine activity on any breed of horses anywhere in the world. Now, that's not necessarily including the dollars exchanged in casinos and side bets and whatever, but we're saying actually the amount of money that's accumulated horseback is greater in team roping now. But you think about it, a lot of the racetracks.
We've been missing the deal, man.
That's right.
We need to get all team ropers.
And it's easy. I'm telling you, this is so easy. But with regards to the team roping, it's just, it's taken off like wildfire. And 2020 did us such a service while we were kind of suffering through that year a little bit, which for me, that year was completely a year of thriving. I didn't, what Andrew and I did a really good job of is we locked in that we were trying to make money during the year. Of course, NFR is not a guarantee. And a few guys that didn't make the finals that year probably would have if they thought the NFR was going to be half as good. But elite guys got families, got businesses, and they're looking at this season and they're like, well, if I'm roping for $1,500 at a rodeo that usually pays $5,000, I'm probably going to be roping for, $7,000 at the NFR, and it's just not worth it. Haul my wife and kids up and down the road. They got to wear masks everywhere. Who knows? There was a lot of drama that happened outside of just COVID within the year. Places that you went in the country were not safe to travel through. So I didn't blame anybody for bailing out. But that being the case, for me, we were looking at it like, hey, can we make money throughout the year here? Andrew and Haley got married in the spring of 2018. And then Andrew and I decided we were going to rope that fall. And we could talk about my wife. That story is amazing because I didn't even know that Haley had a sister. And so we could chase that rabbit for a while. But the point with 2020, though, what it did bring, though, is people are passionate about competition, throughout. People that have office jobs, people that have blue collar workers, especially, they love competition. And a lot of the competition around the world shut down worldwide. And we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people got to see what we're willing to go for, which is basically a deficit.
Yeah.
I can lose money and keep rodeoing because pretty much everybody did.
Yeah.
I said at 69,000, I drove more miles that year than I've ever driven rodeoing. And I made 69,000 at the end of the year, which is, now it's 45,000 short of making the finals. But like I said, my expenses were probably higher on the season. But the point I'm getting to is we acquired a lot of fans from a lot of places. A lot of people swore off sports that were kneeling for the flag and this and that. And they're like, you know what? And so that I think is actually the stimulant in the prices of horses on at least the team roping side, because we have more people coming in with outside money that are enjoying team roping as recreation. It's also bumped up the jackpots. When I started, there were 4 or 5 ropings a year that added 10,000 in the team roping. Now, every month within 1 hour of Stephenville, at least every month, there's a jackpot that adds more than 10,000. But we probably have, I think somebody said the other day, we got 25 ropings throughout the year that add more than 10,000 to an open team roping at that, not just team roping, but open team roping. But that season, it provoked a lot of stuff. For me personally, it was just like a dream come true. But I got married in November. We go to the winter rodeos, and honestly, we have practical expectations, but we're not necessarily a winter team. We're a summer team. So that being the case, we both have rodeoed enough. We know, like we get our money on bigger cows, bigger arenas. And so we just cruise along. Andrew didn't even get in Houston. I did, but I actually got to rope my steers at Houston, but made like, I don't know, a couple thousand. It didn't make much difference. Point I'm getting to though is, I think the influx of team roping, I think the reason it's got so big and all that is because of what happened there and the fan base and the people that have gotten behind it. And then, I mean, Cowboy Channel, the exposure, and what that's provided for us.
Another question for you. Okay. So Cody Johnson has a new team roping now.
Best team rope in the world.
Is it really?
It is.
Why do you think?
First year. Very, very easy. They did the hard part first. What everyone wants to do is they want to start off a team roping that's a really high payout, and they try to get the high payout from the entries from the fees. But we have a really good idea of who's going to win these ropings. It's a short list, first place. And what's advertised, what's publicized is first place. What a lot of guys' ideas are is start small and work your way up. And that makes perfect sense. Start at 150 a man, enter 3 times, no added money. The next year add $5,000, rope for 200. But what we got into is a bunch of places we're trying to rope for 500, 750, pick one, draw one for 1,000, add one for 500. And they're adding money, but ultimately, let's just take a BFI, for example. You add $10,000 to that roping, 5,000 aside. Well, the fees are already $2,500 a man. So that's a difference in 100. That's exactly right. 100 teams and 102. What Cody Johnson did is he took those businesses who love rodeo, who have similar mindset to us. He took Bill Figg and he took Randy Bloomer, and Kojo loves team roping, and he took the entities that are basically they're willing to lose money roping too. You know what I mean? Like they're willing, they love roping enough. Great amateur rodeo, that guy that pro-rodeoed a little bit, Ralph Williams from Oklahoma. When he would get back from a week of rodeo and kind of further away, the guys around the house would ask, how much did you win over there, at Cheyenne or Sheridan or whatever. He usually steer rope primarily when he left home. And he'd say, well, I won $792, but I'd have done it for free.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, like what they did, I'm not sure where all the money came from. Maybe Tito's Vodka paid for all of this stuff. I'm not sure. But what they did was they started up front with the best rope of the year by giving away a truck and trailer. The best truck and the best trailer that's ever been given away in the sport of team rope and 2 and open rope. And so they start at the top. And honestly, I don't know all of the issues when the George Strait went away. But it wasn't because the roping was losing money. I know it wasn't. Now I know it had to do with George losing his brother and some other factors. And like I said, I don't know all the details. What I do know is if you were going to try to have a George Strait the next year, have to give away a truck and trailer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing, because that roping didn't have a ton of added money. But no disgruntled feelings with Austin Robertson or the guys that that come in with the Lone Star Shootout. But there was a bit of like, we're taking a step back. We got 300 teams instead of 600 because we're giving away a trailer, not a truck and trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And when the BFI was leaving Reno, the opportunity was there for some guys to take that over. And there was some discussion. And that's what I threw out there. I'm like, man, if I was going to try to get this event, I would borrow the money to give a truck and trailer away and just see if people show up. But they started at the absolute top. They guaranteed the prizes up front. And then people showed up. And frankly, they didn't get as many teams as I thought they would. But I am sure that event grows because it was a very, very good production. I mean, there was a hospitality for contestants. But we see that at rodeos regularly, rarely at any kind of a jackpot or anything. But they really started great venue. The videos are great and the best prize line. And honestly, there's not enough of that now. If I was critiquing, I would say that, the buckles, the saddles are great. You get to a point where they're kind of stacked up. They're in a box or a drawer somewhere. But those unbelievable prizes like that, Andrew won it the first year. My brother-in-law did. And he goes home with a bloomer trailer with a smart tack in the side and a new Ford truck, and it's like, so he, maybe he wants to buy another truck to rodeo out of this year, but he don't have to, he can get a year and a half out of that truck, under warranty.
ProAm, Cody Johnson does the ProAm.
Yes.
You have a celebrity to choose to head for you. You got a few come to mind. Cody Johnson, Bill Fick is a celebrity in the rodeo world. He was there roping this year. Who is your celebrity that you're picking?
I'm going to pick Barry Berg, who's actually the maker of Cactus Ropes over there. I don't know if he quite qualifies as a celebrity. He's a celebrity in my life. I always tell Barry, and I hope George McQuain hears this because I love George McQuain over there at Classic, by the way. But I've been with Classic Ropes since like the beginning, 16 years now or something. But that being the case, I always tell Barry, I'm like my favorite rope maker, But my point being, Barry, he's super hospitable. He's actually had ropings there at his house and whatever, and he's in almost every one of those deals, and he's a very good chance to win the event about every time. Like he's a real competitive rope. Yeah. Barry sticks, but
I've never met him, but I love seeing his videos. He's like, man, all you gotta do is this right here. He's pulling on that rope, he's swinging it. All you gotta do is just pull on right.
He is a caricature. He is an awesome human. Go back on his Facebook. I can't remember if it's a few years ago, which he's not just super young, like me, but go back on his Facebook. He has a swing at his house where he swings out and dives into his pond and does what I would call a 10-point dive in a diving contest. But this thing is this medieval genius pipe board swing set. It looks so dangerous and so scary, and it's so much bigger than it actually looks on this video. But Barry is one of my favorite human beings, and he's treated me like I was on the team the whole time. And one of the beautiful things about rodeo, is like, I know for sure when Classic burnt down, plug Cactus Ropes right here, but and I'm a Classic guy, but I know for sure that Barry made some ropes and put red, white, and blue tags on the end of them and gave them to some of the Classic endorsees. He tagged them to make them look like Classic ropes while we were waiting on our rope company to be built back. He wasn't, he could have put cactus tags. He could have cut the tags off, but he made it look like that some of them guys were using some. I'm not going to say who was using the ropes, but but the point being, we feel like family, you know, and that's the deal. And honestly, if B. Bray would go over there, I'd want to eel for her. I don't know if she heads, but that being the case,
she heads good.
I bet she does. I bet she does. That's
All
where
right.
Wyatt learned everything he knows, just not everything she knows.
Exactly. Most memorable win ever. So, I mean, you got the average win at the finals is what I think of when I think Buddy Hawkins. What does Buddy Hawkins think about his most memorable win?
Man, you know what, not as many people know about, but I honestly, the most memorable, there's a lot. I liked how you asked somebody a question the other day and they picked three. 3 answers.
Yeah, I know, right?
What's your favorite rodeo? San Antonio. It was JJ. San Antonio, Reno, and Fort Worth. My most memorable win, honestly, because it was a breakthrough for me as an individual. This was before I understood as much about team roping, but in 2008, I really don't have any accolades before that. I've been roping for 8 years. And I thought I was good enough. I've been to a couple maybe booger barters or whatever. I thought I was good enough. And I made up my mind like I was going to win a truck in Ardmore, Oklahoma. And I went over there and I go for 2 days straight. And I'm like an 8-heeler. I go and you rope for 2 days straight. And a lot of guys only entered on the second day, but I just had one real good horse. So I wanted to split my runs, which wasn't super smart actually, because like I had a guy from the first day, he only had one callback and it wasn't very good. So he turned me out the second day. And they didn't let me replace the run or whatever. He just didn't come back for me. But that being the case, I kind of duked it out, and I think it was Craig Von On and I, one of Colin's younger brothers. He was lower numbered at the time too. But anyway, we duked it out for 2 days there. But anyway, I know the very first year I ran on the weekend, it was like entered 20 times, very first year and the very last year I ran on the weekend. If I'd messed either one of them up, I wouldn't have won the truck, but I ended up winning the truck, and I won it hands down, clean win. But it was like, kind of like we're talking like with the Kojo. It's like, this is something, it wasn't $50,000, it was probably a $30,000 truck, but it's like, this is something, the 8 years that I put into this, all my adult life at this point. And so that's probably the one. Like, I remember before the short round, I remember telling my wife, I was like, I'm going to win this truck, and then I'm going to go to the trailer, and I'm going to unsaddle my horse, I'm going to water her, I'm going to wash her, I'm going to put her in the stall, and then I'm going to come back and sign the papers and do whatever they need. But I just basically told her, when I heal the high teamer, I'm leaving, and that's what I'm going to do. Because I just knew I was going to win it. And that was a point that, you get opportunities, the opportunities aren't just all the time to have like a permanent memory of like, I remember how the arena was set up that day. I remember how the box was. I remember how my horse was scoring. That's 17 years ago now. But that's actually probably my most memorable. But there was a lot of like internalization there. There wasn't really a partner to celebrate with. And that's probably the most painful part of, or if there's any pain about it, it's like, oh, dang, we didn't win 2 trucks. But that did something, that did something really special for me. The San Antonio with Drew Horner, we're the 45th of 45 teams. We're the lead. If there's 50, they take 5 from the New Year. We're the worst team. I mean, not the worst, but it's like, neither one have really ever done nothing. Kind of a, the world kind of treated him like a spoiled rich kid. He was anything but I mean, that was kind of the deal is, your dad's got money, so you don't try very hard, which is, bullshit deal. Everybody knows that the sport's too tough. And then I'm kind of the Kansas farm boy. I like how Charmaine said, a which way hat. I know I had a bad shirt. I know what shirt it was. I had a bad hat on. But we did our job on the day. That was a real turning point. And then, I honestly, Andrew and I had tons of them, but my win with Yaqua last year at Houston, which is a huge day for your family. Unbelievable. Your little bay horse goes 6 times, does amazing all 6 times, but, huge day. And like, a little bit of, I nothing to do with outside voices, but a little bit of like, I knew we could, like, I knew JC and I were good enough. And he actually like started off on probably the wrong horse for the week, ended up getting back on his sorrel. We're like 4th of 4 making it through. And then the last one, that was kind of where the balls clanging comment maybe came from, is we get the one, and I've overhazed all week. And we're supposed to have a great winner. If we're going to make the finals, we need to have a great winner. Yako and I do.
Just y'all's run? Just based on y'all's run?
We're a winner team. Yep. So we're supposed to do great, and we haven't. We haven't done great yet. And we get over there and, they pick the cows or whatever. And usually I'm one of the vets. So usually they ask me to help pick cows. And I knew this one particular cow was going to be the make or break for that team. And we drew that steer. There was 3 that were more similar and leaned left, and our run wasn't as sharp to the left. There was one that leaned right, and all winter, that's probably the only steer I let go right. And he airs it out, and I heel him, and it, honestly, I thought, because Andrew Ward and Tanner Braden are actually the fastest from the long round, so they're supposed to beat us still. But I'm like, 25 grand, like, that's a good winner. You know, just stacked with, let's say we had 15, but 15's not. But if you got 40, and then them guys ended up going just a tick too, you know, couple tenths too long, and we end up winning the rodeo. But that's a real, like, that's a real confirmation, you know, when Tori and I talked and prayed about it and what we should do on the year. And I got a lot of NFR headers and veterans that are interested in roping. I had a lot of phone calls, and we just felt like it's bigger, you know, it's bigger than just the bills. Like, we've been getting the bills paid. Andrew Ward wasn't our provider. Like, I love Andrew. He's not a provider, though. The big guy's our provider. And, you know, he provides everything down to the passion to get up and go after it, you know. And I alluded to something earlier about, you know, what I think drives people, but I don't think that competitive people are necessarily the ones that work really hard when it's going bad. I think it's the one, what do you do when it's going really good? You know, and that's where I've seen the greatest guys be the greatest, is when they're doing really good, they're putting more in than the guys that are doing really bad. And so within that, my point was, you know, I thought that we had stuff. I thought we had the right stuff. And I was really at peace with, we make the finals, we don't make the finals, we make a ton of money, we don't make a ton of money. But going into that season, that was, you know, was really a risk for us to take, as a family. Not that JC wasn't amazing. He's one of the most talented guys in the world ever. One of the most all-time great talents. But for us, we can take one of these vets. It's almost a guaranteed back number and this and that. Or we can have an opportunity to share life with somebody else and, you know, kind of follow what, you know, a lot of guys do in their career at kind of the point that I'm at. And it's like, you help a lot of other people accomplish what they want to, you know. Best way to get what you want out of life is helping other people get what they want out of life. And so within that made that was really a confirmation that day. You know, I was pretty emotional about that one. Whether we won the rodeo or didn't win the rodeo, like that kind of finishes your winter. You know, you can, if you got nothing won and you win Austin and San Angelo, good for you. You're doing okay. Yeah. But when we didn't have much won and then we get 57 out of it, it's like now we're rolling, and it let us rodeo the way that I wanted to rodeo in the summer. And you know, that's one thing maybe I don't love about rodeo is your winter kind of dictates your entering schedule in the summer.
How you do in the winter dictates your entering schedule in the summer.
Yes.
We get to go to 80 rodeos. You said you've been to about 30 right now?
Around 30, yep.
Around close to 30. Do you think that the rodeo count should be lower? I mean, you're a numbers guy, you're sharp. What would you have the rodeo count as in the team roping if you could choose?
I would have it set exactly where it is for this season. You know, we have to bring it into context, and we're just now this will be the first year that we have 80 rodeos that are good enough to official with equal money in the team roping. You know, we still actually have a lot of circuit rodeos, small rodeos around the country that are not doing equal money in the team roping. So that's been the big thing. And I voted for 50 a lot of times when there was a vote out there, because I just thought that we needed to take these guys that we need to protect our elite guys. Even if I wasn't one of them, we need to protect them from going from taking extra unnecessary risk. You know, you take your best horse, your family, your rig, and go over here and rope for $1,500 because it's 85 or 95 or 100 or unlimited rodeos. If I had it the way that I think it should be, the only way that you could get into the association, and we could chase the breakaway rabbit, because I'm a fan of breakaway ropers. I'm married to a breakaway roper. She's not rodeoing right now, but she's very good. But let's go with what's been standard since I got in. I think that it's just a no-brainer that everybody deserves, their kids deserve to eat the same. And if your career is shorter, then you have the opportunity to go do something else to feed your kids. If your event has less entries, which is a crazy thing that I hear brought up, well, it's going to pay the same because there's more entries. Well, that means there's more competition. So if there's 7 entries in the bull riding and there's 70 in the team roping, but it pays the same, I'm not saying that I'm going to win the bull riding out of 7 guys. I'm just saying that like it needs to be apples to apples. Now, I think each event should pick their fees. Some guys would like to rope for less and some more. Don't think you can talk to just the best guys. Think you got to take an overall census. I got number 3s and 4s when I was doing lessons. They spend $1,000 a weekend on entry fees. And then sometimes I go drive 3,000 miles and go to 3 rodeos and I only spent $700, so
what's your opinion on fees?
I think minimum fees should be $200. And, I think that we could actually prorate it according to the payout at the rodeo. Huh? So I am very appreciative that San Antonio and Houston, that they cover those fees for us. There's probably a couple other rodeos and, I know the NFR Open, they cover the fees, but it's like, I'm very appreciative of the places that cover the fees. I think that's fine, but I think we could just prorate it up from there. So let's say it's $200 up to 10,000 added, or, in a one header naturally. And then at 10, at 15,000, we go 300, at 20,000, we go 400. I think they did a really neat thing at San Juan before they shut that rodeo down. And they added the added money in accordance with what guys wanted the fees to be. I don't know if you knew that story, but
I've heard that.
Yeah. So nothing to take away from anybody, but they wanted to make it like $300, $500 fees across the board. And some of the guys in other events, they said, you know what, we really don't want to pay that many fees. So they added 40,000 aside in the team roping, and the fees were 400. Some of the other events added 20,000, the fees were 200. I think that works perfect. Like let guys do what they want. Personally, though, at the end of the day, there was a specific rodeo. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. There was a specific rodeo, invitation only, that went on year after year after year, and it had equal money and everything, but the team roping, it was half and up. And every year, the person who produced that rodeo called me every single year and invited me to that rodeo. And every year, I said, ma'am, is it equal money? And they said, well, it's the same amount in the team roping. I said, so my kid deserves, at that time I don't even have a kid, but the way I presented the argument, I said, my kid deserves to eat half, to sleep in half as nice of a house as the bull rider. I'm like, I don't think I can support this rodeo because, it was a specific showcase event. They were trying to get the name brand guys to come to this event. And occasionally I've been leveraged in to going to basically be a place filler at events that I don't think have the best idea. Basically to protect my spot in the standings or whatever, but this particular event was open. And so I never attended the event the entire time that they did it. Well, that event later came back as a full-on rodeo, and I haven't hardly missed it. But my point being, when they came back, the leverage was there to make it equal money. And I think that's the reason we need to put limits. On another note, I believe that we could go unlimited if it was equal money. And I know there's going to be some guys that are younger than me who feel like they're old and won't like that. But I still think it would be each man for himself. And if your skills are actually good enough, then go to 65 rodeos like Zeke Thurston and win the world championship. But on the flip side, I think that the way it is now, is necessary until we're able to get that more readily equalized. We could have 2 tours also. That I think that's a reasonable argument. Let's have a B tour where you guys don't want to add equal money. You can be in this tour over here. I think the tricky part, like when we were doing the All-American deal and stuff over the years, the tricky part was when you put a cap on it, a bunch of people want to be the best of the rest, right? Mm-hmm. So they want to be the best rodeo of the B tour, and they're selling tickets like crazy. There's one state out here that sells out every perf every time, whether they add 4,000 or they add
Utah
100,000. And so what's
I'm not going to say, but I'm shaking.
What's the incentive when you're selling out with 4,000 added and you're getting name brand guys in your rough stock and timed events? There's not much incentive to add more money. And so that's where I think honestly, the association, I think they could come in with a little bit of leverage on that front. I'm not saying they should, but I've got no offense toward the association. I realized early that I either need to like it how it was or get out. Mm-hmm. If I liked it how it was, I can hope, pray, and bust my ass to make it better. But if I don't like it how it is, I'm going to not like it when I get out, because there's always going to be something that you think somebody could do better. And a lot of people are doing better. But point being, I do think that if we had a little more unity, contractor, contestant, committee, and association, I think it would be healthier overall. And I think the only thing that should be leveraged is what kind of a show do you want to put on? You know, we know that brackets are a better show. Okay, here's what it costs to have brackets. Let's not do half brackets. Let's do brackets or not. And here's what it's going to cost. And here are a group of guys that are willing to go to this event. And I'm also, you know, I'm a grinder. I mean, I know one of the years that I rodeoed, I went 10 all-nighters in a row over the 4th. Every single night was an all-night drive, 10 in a row. That was not good, you know, but I mean, I just couldn't buy enough trades. I didn't want to skip rodeos, whatever. So I got traded around where I went 10 all-nighters in a row. I'm a grinder, but at the end of the day, I'm not in support of guys having it super easy, I guess, because I've had it hard, and I think it made me better because I had it hard. On the flip side, I do feel like it can be too hard. Like first time I entered in Canada, let's just, instead of cussing anybody, let's give props to Canada. First time I entered in Canada, enter the biggest rodeo of the week. Let's say you're only going to Canada over the 4th. Enter Ponoka. Let's close on Ponoka. You get up the 29th. When you go to enter Armstrong, guaranteed, if they team rope any other day, you are not the 29th.
Yes, exactly.
So
you're saying Williams Lake.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Williams Lake, British Columbia, the second biggest rodeo of the weekend. Guaranteed you're not. Now it doesn't cross over to the States, so you got to figure that out, but you're guaranteed. So then maybe Airdrie's the next rodeo. So you go to enter Airdrie. If there is any position, now maybe they only have 10 spots. Well, they can't put 60 guys on that day, but the 10 guys that get that, they were the ones that needed that. And then Raymond's the last one, maybe. So if you're going 4 rodeos up there, you are guaranteed. That is not rocket science. That makes sense.
You get what I'm saying?
I'm tracking with this.
That makes sense because it makes the rodeo better.
And you're not getting popped as much.
Correct.
Right.
And I'm not saying that for the contestants. I do love the contestants, and I'm a contestant. I'm saying it for the fan. Who wants to go to the 30,000 aside equal money flip where all the dummy teams, all the doctor releases, and all the turnouts get traded to the Friday night perf, where this rodeo busted butt all year? The Queen Court's been out there sweating their tails off in 105-degree weather, trying to get people in the stands so we can run one team in the team roping. And by the time you get team roping 101 broke down, those guys already missed the steer. He's out the back gate, and we're going on to the specialty act who actually showed up. But he was getting paid to be there. But within that, I think it's very important, fans first, that we, you know, like, I think that's something that's not just super complicated. And one week your card isn't good enough and you get to go to less rodeos, but the next week it'll be your turn. I don't know about the random deal on the cards. I do not think you can give priority to the best guys or the worst guys. I think, you know, randomization on entries is great.
I agree totally. It's kind of funny. We're sitting in Nampa and they're kind of changing their format to progressive.
Format. Yep.
And you can't blame them.
No.
Obviously, as contestants, we would love that flip where we can probably pay some fees to get that middle and run both right there where you have the advantage. But really and truthfully, for the rodeo and the fans, this is a lot better, in my opinion, a lot better format.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been going to Nampa since 2013. They actually went back to back the first year that I came here. It was a back to back during to after. They did that for a couple of years, and the perfs were pretty dang good because, like I know for sure, we chartered in to a Friday night. We got the end. We chartered in actually from Salinas, roped in the morning, chartered in, chartered out to go the end of the rodeo, and I actually ended up winning that rodeo that year also. But that being the case, the point is, it used to be back to back, then it went to a flip. And so for those that don't know, the flip, you random, there may be 100, it may be unlimited entries. There may be a bunch of dummies, which when we say dummies, what we mean is either a legitimate contestant enters extra rodeos to try to help a specific contestant. So he basically has 2 bullets that get in the middle or whatever. Still going on the team roping, sadly enough, or just people that decided they didn't want to go to the rodeo after they entered. And that would be a doctor release or a notified turnout. But what would happen is when people started hearing that somebody was wanting to skip the rodeo, we would trade that to a perf so that we could run both of them in the slack and then be able to get on to the next rodeo, which ultimately what that does is it penalizes, usually the best rodeo of the week is the flip.
Exactly.
Usually it penalizes the guys who are trying the hardest to get equal money for us. And it helps some little rodeo, not taken away from the rodeo, but for some reason, this rodeo is huge and that one isn't. And so the huge rodeo deserves our attention. But, you know, 1 week, the week of Caldwell, it's a flip. I get up at Caldwell, Canby, Moses Lake, Burley, Gooding, and
Baker,
either Billings or Baker on Thursday. I'm at all of them on Thursday. Card hits bad every single time. Can't get traded off it at Caldwell. Then I get popped. The next one is probably Baker. And I'm like, well, maybe I can go because I think it's a Thursday slack that year. Maybe I can fly from Thursday slack, get over there. So I'm still going to be okay. Then they put me there at Canby. So I'm trying to get traded to the first set at Canby. Well, also Lyndon Washington's going on. You're like, well, we can't trade, whatever. We're trying to drive to both of them the same day. I need that day. Then same thing. They put me at Billings. When it was all said and done, I 3-way traded. So what that means is, 3-way trade is going to be that maybe you're Thursday, you need to get to Saturday, but there's no one Saturday that can go Thursday, but there's somebody Friday that can go on your Thursday. So you get the Saturday guy to trade to Friday, you get the Friday guy to trade Thursday, you trade to Saturday. So 3 guys get trades. It usually only helps 1 guy, and you're really grateful. I 3-wayed at 3 rodeos that week and ended up getting to run every steer everywhere with planes, trains, 2 rigs, whatever. But that being the case, like I said, I don't think it's rocket science. There's 100 and some guys probably enter Caldwell. 90 guys show up or whatever. Those 90 should have priority at the second rodeo. There's no way that I should get fouled up at Baker. Like this should just work because there's only 10 of us on that Thursday.
I know.
But that being the case, it's just something that we haven't ironed out. And honestly, I kind of got into the drama of it for a minute and I felt sorry for myself. Then I also realized, it's just another spot for your hustle to kick in. And the guys that are willing to keep an eye on the grace period, you're the one hitting refresh for an hour and a half, waiting on Livingston trade list to come out so that you can be the first one to get that dummy team on the night of the second so that you can get to the rodeo. It pays off that not everybody is paying attention when they change the format last minute and they're going to run 12, 8, and 12 at the end at St. Paul.
Yeah.
And you're the guy that's paying attention. And so your odds of getting that 12, we had 60 guys, I think, asking for 12 spots on the day of the 6th at St. Paul.
Exactly. So, which I think, St. Paul ends the 5th, I think, this year.
Could be. So 60 guys asked for the 5th. You're exactly right.
So, dummy cards.
Yep.
I've entered them. I don't know if you have, whatever. But then they made a rule.
Yep.
They made a rule where if you get a $10,000 fine if you're caught entering a dummy card.
Yep.
And then there's still people that are dummy cards.
100%.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
How are we going to... First off, how can you regulate it? I mean, this gets me fired up.
This is simple. I'm tracking, but a guy is entering twice, knowing dang well he's not going to get it, so then he can turn unenter, turn
Not
out.
quite. Let's say we buy a card for you, and you are a tie-down roper, but you're going to go in Texas. That's the only place you really want to go. But over the 4th, you enter for what we would call the nuts, the most desirable go at every rodeo that Ty wants to go to. But we know good and well you're not going to go. You're a circuit guy, like you don't leave your place, but you enter every rodeo for exactly what Ty would want, and you enter with an or replace. So what that means is Ty stays in the rodeo. If you both miss, then he's going to have to try to get a trade the traditional way. But if either one of you hit, you're going to trade him and then you're going to doctor release or pay your fees. I still don't think paying your fees is the right thing, but you're going to give up that good run. But now Ty's got 2 bullets. He's got double the shot at getting the good deal, the good go at every single rodeo. Now that it's twofold that's bad. I always come back to the fans. Well, there's no way that it's better for them. There's not a single way that it's better. But then that really just comes back to your butts. That's the guy that's parked right there and right there and right there. And you screwed all of them guys so that you could help yourself. And ultimately, I mean, if you really want to break it down, it's the closest thing to cheating within the rules. Now, personally, if you do something within this game that is detrimental to the association, but it's good for you, I feel like we have to come back a little bit of like playing defense, right? So on taxes, you do a cash deal. Jesus says render Caesar what's Caesar's. In my opinion, there's a lot of what goes on with the government. They told me they were doing something, they didn't do something else. So I might play a little defense, right? And I think within this deal, though, this is like a victim. There's a victim in this crime, and they're defenseless. Aside from joining, and so within the dummy deal, I do have a solution for it. I don't think a lot of people like it, and this comes back to our lack of unity in the whole deal. So I don't think it's up to the association to monitor this, and that's usually what ends up happening is people are like, oh, the PRCA lets the dummies in or whatever, and I don't think limits is the answer. We drew quite a few guys out of this rodeo with limits, and that's disappointing to me. Because it ultimately helps other guys have a chance to break through, and it makes the rodeo pay better at the end. And like I'm all for that. What my solution though is it's going to take a contestant union in each event, and what it really needs to come back to is we have right now. There is almost zero chance that if you give me 30 names to pick, that I would miss one guy who's going to be rodeoing at the end of the season and make the NFR. If you give me double the odds, I can just go down the list and I can say,
in each event, you're saying?
Yes, each event. It's like we pretty much know who's going to be there at the end. It's pretty well locked.
Yeah, there's 30 guys. You can pick the 15.
But if the 30 guys would get together and they would say, all right, I don't care if you've done it, you haven't done it. Here's the new deal. We know who's doing it. The contestants do. The association, I see how they're confused. There's a bunch of dummy teams that are competing this week and next week in Texas, but then they're going to doctor over the 4th. I already know who it is. I know who entered them. I know why they entered. But we get like these 30 names together, and what else you can do is you can give these 30 guys an advantage doing this. But if we got 30 names, 30 teams, which here's another thing, team roping, that could get dramatic because this guy splits and then he's entering a dummy and this other guy's like, no, I never did enter a dummy. Point being, they get together and they say, all right, there's going to be no dummies. And if you enter a dummy, there'll be 0 trades within the group. You will not get any of these guys because the more limits we get, the more you need trades. I traded the Johnsons this winter at a limited rodeo. They only had a few guys to pick from, and we all would have been in that group. So if I know that those guys are doing it, then I'm like, oh, sorry. Rule within the clan, the gang, the union is we can't trade with guys that enter dummies. So you're on your own. Enter the dummies, do what you want to do. But as the limits increase, the dummies go away because dummies are, like I said, they're not going to be super competitive at the highest level. Limits are typically based on performance and how much money you have won on the season. So if we limit it to 80, we get at almost every dummy out. And I think that's where some of the limits came from. Still not a huge fan. Houston, San Antonio, limit all you want. Cut it down to 10 guys. If I'm not the 10 guys, sad for me. Yes, but if you're not able to add, $100,000, maybe 50's enough. Can't put big limits on stuff, So point I'm getting to though, we have a union. Those guys do not, they do not trade anyone outside of the union that enters dummy teams. Or anybody that enters dummy teams, period. You won't be in the union if you enter dummy teams. Now they can trade with circuit guys. Circuit guys can trade with them. Other rodeo guys can trade with them. They're not in the union. It doesn't, that is going to be fine. But what we do is we cut off those guys. So the only options they have are their dummy teams. We could leave the limits for a minute. So now their dummy teams are out. So now they're just up to their card. And then, but the primary factor, this is where the union could dissolve, is a few brains in each event can sit down and come up with routes for each week. But you must trade within the union to help, no matter first run, rerun, first of the rodeo, end of the rodeo, within reason. You can't trade Prineville the morning after you're in Pecos.
Right. Exactly.
Within reason, as long as you don't have to turn out. So when your card's hitting and you get Saturday at Sheridan and you get Friday night at Casper and you get the morning slack over there at
Estes,
and you're getting the reruns and you're getting the end and whatever. There's a good chance you're gonna have to give some of those up.
Yep.
But not to the point that you miss a rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
But you're gonna have to give some of those spots up. But when you need it, instead of calling and begging or calling and buying, the Bulldoggers, to my knowledge, they still don't buy trades.
I don't think that they do.
The quote that stopped that was, "Are you gonna trade or doctor?" And they said, "I guess I'll trade," and that took care of it. But that's they just handled it with himself, and they got the best brotherhood.
Beat up if you don't do it.
That's right. They have the best brotherhood within the sport. I mean, guy goes out there, sets the arena record. Next guy comes right behind him, and he's out there just clapping and cheering, and and within that, I think we got a good brotherhood within team rope, and I think you guys do too. But we're all different types, right? A little bit like I've heard jokes that if you watch, 3 different guys walk across the parking lot, you can pick a team roper, a calf roper, a steer wrestler, whatever.
Yeah.
We're all a little bit unique, but I think that deal could actually unanimously help us. And like I said, there's no dummies in the steer wrestling, and guys do trade. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that you trade and turn out unless it's absolutely necessary. Exactly. What it means is when you can help, you do help. Mm-hmm. And I still got guys. I actually had somebody call me last year and remind me of a trade from 2000 and that year, 2018, I got fouled at all them rodeos. There was a guy that was going to have to turn out because he was up at Linden and Canby the same day. He was going to have to turn out. I called him. I said, hey, you can't make it. There's too much traffic. You do what you want. You don't owe me nothing. He said, I think I can make it. I'm going to stick on it. And then he called me back. He's like, I think I'm going to have to turn out. I think I better trade you. It's going to help both of us. Well, he called me back last year. So 7 years later, he said, hey, remember that time I traded you over there at Canby? You really had to have it. He's like, I really need this at Walla Walla. And I said, no. I said, you were going to turn out that rodeo. And I said, I think that's apples to apples. But I do remember the time that you traded me at North Platte and you give me a rerun and I was screwed. And so I will give you the middle at Walla Walla from this other spot. But point being, and I don't have a black book of all these people that owe me, but my point being, it's uncomfortable. You call and ask for favors, and if you're on the bubble, you got to have it. And other people know you got to have it. And some people won't give it to you because you got to have it. And then when you're doing really good, that's the impossible time to trade.
Yeah.
Like it is so hard unless you're just the most charismatic guy in the world. If you're winning all the time, people are like, don't we need to give you an advantage? You could skip a couple as far as I'm concerned.
So when your partner backs in there and he ain't got that horse,
yes.
Are you thinking?
Well, I'm working on the other horses actually. Yeah. And we both got say, I actually have 6 horses in Idaho right now. And he has,
wow.
But he lives here. So I've been here for 2 weeks and we've been practicing. He's 30 minutes from where we're sitting. I'm fixing to go practice right now. But he's got 13, you know what I mean? Like not all elite rodeo horses. Yeah. I've got four rodeo horses. 2 of them are elite right here. And those are the main 2 that are going to see all the big rodeos. But yes, he's got like 3 or 4 that are real deal rodeo horses. And there's one in particular, we were talking about it yesterday and our numbers have not been as good. And we're like, man, 2020 really taught me because you had guys who are supposed to be the fastest guys. And we're going to all these one headers. And a lot of those guys did not make the finals. And then we had guys that are supposed to be catchers like Andrew and I, and we're going to all one headers, most of them paying 6 monies. And you got all these catchers that are showing up at the NFR. Jeff being one of them. That's the only time he's made the finals. He's kind of having the same career story that I had basically with made it in 2020 and then we're going to get there in 25. But it took me 5 years to get there the second time too. But that being the case, Jeff made it the first year and he spun a lot of steers for Worley, really healed a lot. And then, some horse changes and stuff, probably honestly some mistakes, probably, you go study, you think you got it figured out. That was kind of the deal for me. Like I did figure some stuff out. And then the next year it just, it kind of goes wrong. And then it snowballs a little bit. I think winning's a habit and losing can be a habit too. And, I got a little bit trapped in losing for a while. And that's kind of the honestly, that was really the end. That was where I get to the point that, 2018, I'm losing in the arena and I'm losing in life. And I quit the arena, I figured life out. And then I come back and it took me a month, but I come back and I was a different guy and I have been, since 18. I didn't make it in 19, but that's a whole nother deal. But since I come back in 18, I've not been, that's been this career that I'm in right now. I've been a pretty similar roper for 7 years. And I got another notch. I'm really focused on the horsemanship right now and really good horses. I got another level up that I can achieve. Like I know I can, but I got to do a few things. Like I got to really take care of me, like health and rest and eating, a lot of what we've been told not to do, eat a lot of red meat and not very many vegetables and not a lot of soda pop, which I know we're not supposed to do that, but I got to take care of that side and I get really sharp. My sight, my mind, my reaction time speeds up. And then same thing with the horses. I just decided it was time. My 19-year-old's healthy and I'll ride him anywhere that I think he's really good. But he's at home because I don't think he's good at any of this stuff right here compared to what I got. But I kind of, I guess it's like taking one rope to the arena. You don't get up there and wonder which one you should use, And so I left that one at home because if he's in the trailer, I see him tied to the trailer. It messes with me a little. I know what he's good at. I know what he's not good at. And I know that we're doing the right thing right now, but it has been a challenge for me.
Man, you sound like you've been through the challenges, been through the kind of the trials, the tribulations in life and in the arena, and it's pretty awesome to watch.
I'm just sitting back and learning, bro. Literally, like I've never heard this analytical of a breakdown of team roping. I mean, I've watched my whole life.
Sure.
This has immersed me in the sport.
And it relates though to life, videography, rope, and everything.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you look at the numbers, and I love how you have. So I'm a numbers guy. Analytically, I'm pretty good, but I try to kind of stay away from it sometimes because if I look at those numbers, then I'll let myself get down about it.
But it seems to make him better.
You're so positive.
I'm in support.
And realistic.
Yeah, I'm in support. I think maybe it was you and Joe B talking a while back, and you said, check the results on Sunday. No, it was Super Looper. Yeah. And call in Monday and see how much you won, and I think I'm in support. You've got to decide each day, or maybe you can make a decision that lasts a long time, but I still have to get into it a little. Are you competing with them, or are they competing with you?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're competing with them, then you better know what's going on. You better know what's winning the day money, what's winning the eighth, how many guys are left behind you, what are the reruns on these steers going to be. If they're competing with you, then now it's just you and yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And and I'm on a team, and that's a great opportunity. I think I would have left rodeo a long time ago if it wasn't for feeling like I was going to leave somebody hanging, because I knew that I hadn't achieved what I wanted. I wasn't on the track that I wanted to be on, but about every time that I was fixing to quit, like I went to the straight, kind of the end, like I said, of almost like the end of my second career before I even made the finals. I borrowed money one year to go to the straight, and that was my last event ever. But I had three partners down there that were counting on me, and it's like a week or two before, and I don't remember, my truck broke down, my trailer, stuff was going wrong, and I don't have the money. And I'm like, it's the best roping of the year. And I literally get down there, and I roped decent the first day. It was a 2-day deal. The second day, I roped a leg on the first steer of the day. And so basically, you're done. It was actually with famed rodeo announcer of the year, Anthony Lucia. And Anthony headed so good before he committed to the microphone full time that we came back and placed at the straight with the leg. We come back and won 8th place. I won $8,000. Went right back home and went right back to work like nothing ever happened. But that was my last event. Like I didn't have a plan of what I was doing, but I knew I had come to the end of it goes good or it doesn't here. And then it did. And I went on and that kind of opened me up into like the next season was probably the next year was my rookie year. And then the year after that would have been when I made the finals the first time. So I didn't get in the buildings or anything in 2012 and just did okay in the winter. I actually roped with Drew and we did better than I thought we did. But my standard has, if I ever had a standard, it was whoever's winning the world and winning all the jackpots right now. And like, I need to be at that level.
Uh-huh.
And then I realized later that I got a different calling than that. And so my standard, I've been able to, Pace Freed with X Factor. He says it really good. Did you take the shot you should have? And I think a lot of times that's really the question is, it's not if you took the shot for first, it's not if you took the shot for 8th, but did you take the shot you should have taken? And many times I miss a steer. But very, very rarely do I miss him for free, if that makes sense. Like if I take a shot and I miss, it's probably because that was where I thought the money was. I missed one up at Houston this year, and I have really good numbers at the winter rodeos, the buildings. I'm able to prepare, and I'm very disciplined in preparation. I think, another thing I put out there, but I haven't achieved this, but I don't think greatness is as much the performance as it is the preparation. I just think the preparation leads to performance, but performance doesn't necessarily lead to preparation. Many times people perform and then they under-prepare. And so it actually leads to failure. But point being, I prepare really good in the winter, and so I'm not supposed to mess any up. Every rodeo that I go to. And a lot of times I've went through the winter and I haven't. Like I may mess up at Odessa, but that's not what I think winter rodeo. That's a rodeo.
Yeah.
But like I'll go to Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston, and not miss any up. But I messed one up at Houston. It was kind of a hard pill to swallow because I'm roping with Chad. We're not really a team, but we actually got together and practiced and worked on it that week. But we were first out, first day of the rodeo.
Hmm.
And don't win anything the first day. We're 8th out the second day, and we're 2nd out the third day. So back to stats. If we don't win 2,000 the second day, it doesn't look great for us at 2nd out the first day. And we're in a bracket. There's, 14 other guys, and 12 of them are NFR guys.
Mhm.
NFR within the last 2 years. They're all really good. So anyway, the second day, just steers plus. There's like a 5-1, 5-4 on the board or something, and Chad turns a great steer. But I got 5-3 on my mind. I'm last out is guaranteed. If we get the 2,000, then we probably put a time on the board and get back the next day. And I missed the steer, and I don't know. Maybe we were going to be 4-9, and I could have taken another swing. I don't think so. But living with the preparation and the decision, to make it in the moment, because say he rings the barrier, money stumble, and he cranks in B4 flat. That one I don't hardly never mess up to be under 5-3, but steer was sharp, step to the left, he runs, stuck, put him on the end of it, just like we practiced. And I took the throw that I thought was going to be good enough to get us the 2,000 and set us up for progression.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm within that. I am competing with the competition, but it's, I think it's educated there. And what I don't want to get into is catching everybody else's cow for them. But when you're 1st or 2nd out over there, it's going to take a good run to win 2,000.
Yeah. It's amazing for me to hear about you talking about preparation. I mean, obviously everybody knows you have to practice.
A quote,
but
I don't owe anybody anything from this quote. This is my quote, and I think it summarizes it pretty well. But let me look it up. I'm gonna get this right.
I love it.
Fundamentals, the engine, passion, the fuel, winning the caboose on discipline railway.
Say that again.
Fundamentals, the engine, passion, the fuel, winning the caboose on discipline railway. And I think
you're going to get that copyrighted trademark.
I'm going to copyright it. But I think discipline is the key there. I'm disciplining my kids. That, it's kind of like, consequences gets a bad rap. The consequences for me busting ass for 25 years is that I got my bus paid off, I got my trailer paid off, I got my horses paid off, I got 2 places paid off. The consequences for looking out for yourself your whole life is you end up by yourself. I think consequences is good for a lot of people. Plug to Joseph Harrison, the best healing showman that there is. He wants the NFR to be judged, I bet.
Exactly.
He's great. He's an NFR qualifier. He's probably made as many as me. I don't even know. But I do not want judged events against that guy. I want time events. I'm not even necessarily faster than him. I just have practiced to compete with a clock. And he shows stuff. He can get on. I'm not saying he rides dinks because he don't, but he can get on half the horse I ride and get twice the points.
Uh-huh.
The discipline factor, I think anytime we think, oh, you got disciplined or you get disciplined, like too much of the time as if it has, only negative connotation. It has a positive connotation. Discipline is the way to live. If you live disciplined, if you're disciplined in your walk with the Lord, you expect peace, you expect joy, you expect love. If you get up in the morning, you put on green glasses, your bus is green, your truck is green, your horse is green. You get up, you put on pessimistic glasses, your kef's bad, your truck's bad, your horse is bad, your driver's bad. And so within that, I think the discipline is, it's the railway, right?
Yes.
It's the railway. And if we're on discipline railway and like we become locked in, and a lot of guys, I've done it myself. A lot of guys are cruising through life like they're on a boat, and that boat's just like, even when you steer it, it's kind of like off over here and off over here. What I notice about the best guys, and it comes to how, honestly, the absolute best guys, in my opinion, were the ones I've been around. The absolute best guys are the best losers I have ever seen. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you have to be the best loser to be the best, but I, the very first time, 2006, first time I ever met Al, first time I ever met Speed. I'd never met Clay Cooper at the time. I'm going to meet him, a couple years later. But the year before, 2005, Speed Williams, Clay Cooper win the best roping. They're still, Champ's still one of the best headers. Richie's kind of the best guy coming off 8 buckles, but they had won the straight the year before. First day of the straight, 2006, I get to go watch it. First major roping I've ever watched. Speed Williams nails a barrier, hangs it on one, perfect spin, perfect handle. Champ could not have thrown it any worse. Maybe knocked dust off the steer's butt as he threw his heel loop. And he coils it up. He's riding out of the arena, and Champ's got. I honestly, I copy so much stuff. The way he coils his rope and hangs it over the saddle horn, the way he tucks his glove in his belt. I can see to this day the way he kicks his hat back just a little bit. As he's riding out of the arena, and a little girl, oblivious to what has gone on in the arena, runs over to the fence on the day of the best roping of the year, heeling for the best partner in the world. Dustin won, throwing it right behind him. A little girl runs over. Clay. I don't know who the girl was. What I do know is Clay stopped, leaned over the fence. This 3, 4-year-old, 6-year-old girl. I can't remember her age. I don't remember the girl. I just know it was a girl, and I know she was under 8 years old. Leans over, pats her on the back, big smile, gets it back in. No one at the back end was the wiser whether Champ healed him. As far as, everybody in the world would have thought if Clay rode out of the arena, it was doubles, he rides out. I've seen Speedy do the same thing. I've seen him, break the barrier and basically throw his head back and be over it. High team at BFI, 10 seconds to win the rope, but I think within that, the point I'm getting to is those guys are stoic. I don't think you have to be really, really good. I don't think you have to be, but I think the best a lot of times have been. And I'm not saying that they were perfect when they were 18 and 20 and 25 years old or whatever. I just think like I aspired to be in that spot, and same thing. You play the law of averages, and there's only a few days a year that you achieve greatness,
Mm-hmm.
on the day,
Mm-hmm.
you go down in history, there's only a few, there's only been one Kojo, there's only one straight, there's only one Feist each year. Like I said, we got lucky and got to go to a couple of them back to back for a couple of years. But within that, I think the discipline, in preparation, I think that's a key factor. And I think anybody with a high skill set, anybody with an elite, and I think elite, I'm saying any fraction of a percentile guy can show up in that event and can tell you in the day of preparation how good somebody is.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell, like honestly, and you guys have probably seen this, but somebody might do my job. They might be a number 4 roper. They might do my job perfectly one time.
Mm-hmm.
If a header turns them a perfect steer and they're accidentally in time, they accidentally nail the turn, and they accidentally throw in dally, it may look perfect. We're like, we have no idea how good this guy is. And frankly, like I was telling you, like some of these headers that I've healed for, when them guys heel, they run one, you're like, that's a 10. He's a 10. And then, now I see he's a 7. He's an 8. He's not, his consistency is the factor.
Mm-hmm.
And so within that, I think that's really what it comes down to is it's you're locked in the tracks, and, the only thing that can stop it is something that's more important than the track that you're on, Yeah,
I just, of the best healers, I think probably every professional sport, you have to be extremely disciplined, and it's very monotonous over and over and over and over. But especially healing, it's almost like Rain Man. You're looking at the same throw, the same thing, just 100 million times.
Well, and you guys probably know this already, but healers go off the deep end. If you go thinking about the stories you've heard, the crazy things that have happened in rodeo, whether it be self-harm, drugs, like healers, there is a dark opportunity there. And many times you come to a Y in the road where you have the option of like, you need relief from this pain of, the amount of preparation and how easy it can feel and how impossible it can feel. And I know I've seen it in golf. I don't know a lot about golf, but I've studied and watched some documentaries on guys. I know it happens in tennis. That you just get a sixth sense about it, and that sense goes away for a moment and it comes back. With us, one of the biggest things with those dark deals is the horses, cause a horse can make, I can put you on a horse, I watch you heal, and I've sold a lot of horses over the year. I've kind of stopped doing that too, but basically I'm just working on my healing right now. But point being, I can watch somebody rope, not very many, and I can be like, oh, this horse won't work for you.
Mm-hmm.
But this one over here, this might be a fit. Or I know a guy who has such and such, I always pride myself in a matchmaker. I was almost never wrong. The first horse I show somebody is almost always the best one I can get them on. May not be the one that they buy. They may go buy some from Wesley or somebody else, but almost every time I get them on the right one the first try. But the dark side of it is that there is some monotony, you know, and it's like the savants when they play chess, and savants are the best chess players in the world. I don't know, you guys should look this up. It's a very interesting topic. But they're not very good at like chess tournament settings. They can't really handle the organized, being bossed around, whatever, but they literally have a sixth sense about chess. So, one of the, I think the levels on chess are totally different than any other sport, but let's say it goes to 1,000. And so like 1 in 10,000 people would achieve a 900 maybe. I'm pulling these numbers out, but generally speaking, one particular interview and one character I was listening to, you know, he was like a 900 and he was getting ready to go to a chess tournament and he happened to see a random homeless guy on the street and he's got a chessboard sitting in front of him. And he says, hey, could I play chess against you? And he said, yeah, one time. And so this guy at a level 900, you know, he's like playing against computers, you know, like, well, he makes a move and before he picks his hand up, the guy's made his move. And so he thinks about it for a second. He makes his move before he picks his hand up. That guy's made that move. Long story short, he checkmates him in less than 3 minutes. And this guy is a 1 in 10,000 chess player already before he plays this guy. So he says one more time. The guy says, no, I'm leaving. This homeless guy, it seems like he's got nothing going on. So he ends up paying him to play him one more time. And he checkmates him in 2 minutes the second time, folds his board up, all of his pieces, and is leaving. It's like a story out of, you know, like, and he's like, who are you? You know, and like, what's the deal? But anyway, he's a savant, and it's just a very interesting thing. But the point I'm getting to is the healing gets to the point where you've darn near seen everything. Like we've darn near, I mean, I've been rodeoing for 27% of my life. And I have been team roping for 80% or whatever. It's like, I've seen so many different things that then the one that I missed the other day, I've seen that one before and I've caught him a lot. So like, you know, it really like, it's almost a deal. You've got to check yourself because you can definitely start ratcheting and be like new low. Catch for a month, miss an easy one, all time low. Catch for 2 weeks, miss an easy one, all time low again. And we've got to get into the, you know, the more practical side of it. And honestly, the best tip I have for that I think this works for everyone. And I would literally, at this point in my life, I would literally turn out, but I will not leave the rodeo until I've dealt with it. Like I don't go slam my shit in the truck and freak out and whip my horse and then load up and go to the convenience store and cuss the clerk. Like I'm going to be right here at Nampa until I've dealt with Nampa.
Really? So and you ain't pulling out of the parking lot until it's over. You're done with it.
Yep. I will deal with it here. And if the rig had to leave me, it's never had to. But what I realized is, you know, action attracts what you're acting on. You know, so, and I'm not super big on internalization, and I'm not saying you can't vent. What I'm saying is action will attract it. So we overreact to this certain scenario. We're going to get another chance. You know, I believe in grace. Grace isn't that you give the wrong answer and you pass the test. Grace is that you get to take the test again until you get it right. So we have this opportunity. And so I think that's the deal with rodeo is I've missed to win Houston. I've won Houston. I've missed to win BFI and I've won the BFI. I've missed for a gold buckle and I've caught for a gold buckle. I haven't won it yet. But I've been in that spot a couple of times and I've caught them. So that being the case, I just think that's the factor for me is, and I think if I overreact to this mistake, there's a good chance that this mistake's going to roll back around and I'm going to have to take this test again.